if you go talk to any one of my exes, they're gonna be like, he helped me kind of get it together. Because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of that is like, that becomes challenging when I'm helping you get it together more than I'm helping me get it together. We said we was gonna go there, bro. We gonna go layers and layers and layers in.
Welcome back to the podcast. I started this podcast as a way to help Black men in all aspects of our lives. Studies show on average we lose 2.8 years of our life when we're under heavy stress. And I think we can gain those 2.8 years back if we express ourselves healthily. Stick with me as I interview therapists, doctors, advocates, activists, and friends about how we can be better as Black men and as a Black community. If you're not subscribed to us on YouTube and following us on Instagram and TikTok, you'll definitely want to do that. Without further ado, let's get into the episode.
So y'all, we're back. We're here with Tice.
My guy.
Tice,
Pleasure
man.
to be here.
Yo, absolutely. I appreciate you being here, bro. I feel like you've seen at every stage of the podcast, you've been on the podcast.
I think so.
Yeah, you have, bro. Because the first time we met was when you had your manager.
Yep.
And she reached out to me, and then we linked up. We did the Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Then we did our in-person episode with you.
Yep.
Where we did it through WeWork,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like on the go type of thing. We didn't have
no
real vision for how we were doing it. And that's when we had first started in-person podcasts. Was around that time. I think it was like episode 66 or something. I can't remember exactly what episode it was. Now we just did the episode 100. That's why you see the balloons there.
Yo, congrats, bro.
Bro, I appreciate you.
Loving the consistency, man.
I appreciate you, bro. We just did episode 100. And so we had the whole setup in the crib now. You feel me? Whole different ball game. We just getting started. So, man, I always like talking to you because I feel like I'm talking to someone that just understands. Like other folks, I gotta like, not everybody, right? But like some folks is like, you got to craft it, you gotta build the rapport. We already have all that, so I can skip all of the pleasantries. We can get straight into it. So we were just talking about one of your biggest challenges.
Yeah.
Yes. So can you please explain what you were just saying to me?
Yeah. Nah, we can go ahead and jump right into it. So, obviously you asked about my past relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
That challenge of, so I've been an entrepreneur since I graduated college.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying, 2017. And I think when I really look, but that's been about that's about to be 6 years in May, right? For me, one of the biggest challenges has been the ability to properly manage a relationship while being an entrepreneur. 100%. All the way.
And what about it is challenging, bro? Like, what do you find? Like, what's challenging for you specifically?
So there's a couple of different things, right? I think one of them being, there's a couple of different layers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The first layer is just like your focus and your time and your energy,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that you're with a person who is aligned with where you're going, who's aligned with your value system, is not distracting you. Because at that point, it's like you're actually being a detriment to your future. Like you're moving irresponsibly if you're trying to date the wrong person, right? So I think at the first layer, it's like, expectations versus where you at, and just making sure that you're choosing the right person. But I think once you even get past that next level, that's when you start to think about things like just the capacity needed to truly show up in a relationship at all levels, the level of security that you got to have with yourself, mentally, spiritually, financially, emotionally, and pairing that with the volatility of entrepreneurship. I mean, I've been when I graduated from college, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be a millionaire by the time, I don't know, I think I said I was gonna be a millionaire by the time I was like 26. I'm 26. I ain't touch a mill yet, right? Getting there, like I think I'll be there, but ultimately, there's different levels of volatility in entrepreneurship where you're constantly like learning. You know what I'm saying? You're constantly building they always say like you're jumping off an airplane and you're building a parachute or building a plane on the way down or whatever the saying is. It's like you're constantly doing that in multiple areas of your life, right? And so now you have to look at your capacity and your ability to show up with the person, your ability to be consistent on yourself. Entrepreneurship is one of those things where it's like you have to be working on your mind to grow. Like you and I both know, like you can have all the skills and the things in the world, but your business is gonna grow at your character, at the level of your self growth, at the level of your character, and just that space of having clarity with yourself, who you are, that you can get. Sometimes you can lose that
Right.
in the minutia of the ups and downs.
Right.
And so it's like you have all this like this mental, emotional, financial mosh pit of things going on, and there's never any stability. And so you're trying to give another person stability while you're doing that. And I think that you know, you just got to know, and it looks different for everybody, right? But you got to know who you are. You got to understand where you're grounded at. You also got to understand the season that you are in. You got to be real about your capacity. I think that for me, one of the biggest mistakes I've always made in relationships is just not being real with where my actual capacity is. You know what I'm saying? And then ultimately that either coming with a level of resentment because I feel like, yo, I want to put time and focus into my business because I know I'm right here, but like you're making it clear that I'm not putting enough time and energy into you, right? Which is fair, right? Or just a standpoint of like knowing the ways that I could show up, but just understanding how I really like what's realistic for me. You know what I mean? So I think that that's one of the biggest challenges that I'm personally still navigating, if I'm just being vulnerable here right now, you know? And so I'm just figuring it out, bro.
Right. When you say resentment, are you saying like you feel resentment towards your partner or like resentment towards yourself?
It's probably starts with yourself.
Okay.
You know, I think I'm emotionally mature enough to understand that it's not my partner's fault because I make my choices. But definitely resentment toward yourself. Like sometimes you may take a loss, or you may feel like I could have maybe it could be a project, it could be a launch, it could be anything. It could be just be where you're at. And you may look at it like, yo, I really could have been locked in, but I was spending too much time with my partner, or I was just like, I was distracted doing these different types of things. And so it gets really, it's an interesting relationship there, you know, where sometimes you could be like, damn, like you question like, yo, do I really need to be doing this right now?
Yeah.
Or do I really need to be locked in? And I think that one of the things I struggle with is this notion of like, well, you always gonna kind of feel like that. You always gonna kind of feel like you could always be more locked in. But I think when I look at one of my old mentors, you know, I remember when I started working with him, his wife like did sales for him. And I remember because she's the one that actually like sold me the offer. And one of the things he said, he was like, yo, if you're gonna play this game of entrepreneurship, he was like, either 100% find the woman that you're gonna be down with, like you have no doubt you're gonna marry her, right? Or don't date at all. And I was like, at the time, I'm still young. I'm like, cause I do well with the ladies. So I'm just like, I'm not trying to hear that. Cause I'm like, I'm not getting married right now. And I'm like, I'll probably have a little bit of fun. But as you start getting serious, you start realizing like, as you grow and as you progress, your time becomes more valuable. How you make decisions is more impactful on where you're gonna be in a couple of years.
Right.
Like you start to realize you don't have the capacity to just be out here playing around.
Right.
And so even when you try to get serious though, it's like a whole layer of other things on the other side that I feel like all these people start dating podcasts that's just talking shit. I think somebody should start a dating podcast that's specific towards entrepreneurs, right? Because I think that whole layering is, it's just different. And it's not to say that it's just because one person has like, it's not just because it's like, oh, I don't have a job or I run a business. It's just different. It's just you're just operating on a different psychological framework on a day-to-day basis. The anxiety is different. The frustrations are different. The emotions are different. You know what I'm saying? And so that's obviously going to impact your relationship. And I feel like that's just something that I haven't really seen anybody give like a thorough breakdown
on how to do it.
Real talk.
We should talk about that then. We should use this episode to talk about that. Well, I want to talk about some other stuff, but we should definitely use this episode to talk about that and see how it'll be received. One of the things I wanted to ask you, because I feel like we have two different thought processes when it comes to relationships. I also understand what your mentor is saying. Like, I feel like that's why my relationship has worked, because I know the woman that I'm with right now, Naima, I know we're getting married. Like, we're getting married. I know that. So, and I knew that when we first got together because that was my high school sweetheart. So I knew once we got back together, oh, it's clip. You ain't going nowhere. I'm not going nowhere. So I knew for a fact, like I could build a business and invest my time into her. And she's also on board with it. You get what I'm saying? So I think those two things have to be there. But one of the things that helps me with my relationship is understanding that I'm not building this business to sacrifice my relationship, if you get what I'm saying. So sometimes there's times where I could invest more time into the business and it probably would lead to more money. But it's like, if that's leading to the detriment of my relationship, is it really worth it? You get what I'm saying? Because at the same time, I understand this is the person I want to be married to and that I want to invest. I want to spend the rest of my life with. So when I think about it from that lens, it's like money is important. Yeah. But for me, like on a priority basis, I prioritize my relationship sometimes, not all the time, over money. Like there was time, bro, people don't even know this. I'm not gonna name the platform, but a platform reached out to me. It's a big platform. And they're like, hey, you know, we had this thing going on. These are the dates that are available. And then one of the dates fell on Naima's birthday. And I said, oh, I can't go. I can't do it. And they're like, oh, cool, we'll circle back with you. They've never circled back. But I knew that was a potential of what would happen when I told them, I'm not gonna do it. Choices. I know if I went and did it, it would have led to, we would have grown. And this is like, I know guaranteed growth. It would have been guaranteed growth because of what that platform is doing. But I decided in that moment, like integrity wise, like I had already set, and this is stuff that I've talked with God about. So it's not just me making these things up and this is what I'm going with. I've had conversations with God where I'm like, yo, God, I'm not building this at the expense of these things. One of those things is Naima, because I know I put that at on a certain level in my life. And I think that's when it comes back to what your mentor is saying. I think your mentor is giving very sound advice in that situation, because it's like, it's gonna be hard for you to figure out what situations, like it's gonna be hard for you to prioritize appropriately if you're dating and you're not sure about the person you're dating. Cause I could see myself fall into that same situation. If I wasn't with Naima and I was with somebody else that I wasn't sure about, I'm not spending no time. Why am I investing time into you? I could be building my business even more. I'm not even sure about marrying you. So why would I spend time here? Right. You get what I'm saying? When I could be, because you get what I'm saying?
The caveat is like, you got to spend time with that person to become sure that you're like you said, it was like, it was sort of like that God sent understanding. Like you already had history with her.
Yeah.
Right? You know, when it came back around, you had all those clear signals of alignment, right? I'm going to assume. And it's like, all right, the other side is like, all right, to get to the point where you really feel like you're going to be able to marry, you want to marry a woman, that's going to take time and energy. So you're still kind of expending your time. And I think that's just also like where you're at as a man. Like, do you really value to have a relationship right now, start to meet your partner? And I think that the other side is it all depends on the archetype of your personality. Like some people are like really good at just doing one thing, like, right? And where some people want to have more of that balance or alignment. And so when you start to consider these things, it's really just like, it's going back to like your value system, like what you want. You know, it's interesting because like, as we talk about this, it makes me think about, you know, when my mentor had told me that, I wasn't in that space at that time. I'm young, I'm a fitness coach at the time, I'm in shape. I get to work out for a living, and I'm online with my shirt off all day. My ego is completely satisfied because I'm getting attention from women online all the time. So my mind was like, nah, I'm just really just playing, right? And so like, as I get older, obviously that I've evolved past that. Right. So now I'm considering those things. But then on the other side of it, it's like, oh shoot, like I also got to get really, really more serious and dialed in with business, you know? Yeah. And so that's where the challenge comes in. And I think that, you know, I was speaking to one of my best friends / old business partner's wife the other day. She was in Atlanta. We went to go get some food, and they've been together since I was in college, right? And one of the things she talked about was, you know, we was talking about the whole aspect of like, relationships and stuff, and she mentioned these sort of 3 layers of like where you're at psychologically and with the person, right? She calls it your storming years, your forming years, and then your norming years. Right.
I've heard that before.
I don't know where she got it from, but this is the first time I really sat down.
Heard that.
Wow. Like it really changed my perspective on
please explain.
Relationships.
Yeah.
And so she explains, like, she's like, yeah, you know, she's like, me and the bid were together during our storming years, right? Storming years is like when you're young and you just like, I just want to go after like what I feel like I'm here to do, like with all feet in. right? And she was like, we were kind of together at that point. So now when you go through that first phase, then you have like your forming years. This is where you start to like develop, you find more stability in your lifestyle. You're starting to develop in your body, your work. You kind of understand the trajectory of where you're going, right? And then you have your norming years, which is like now I'm really starting to find the normalcy in my life, my relationships, my customs, my values. And she was pretty much saying a lot of times this is a popular topic around dating, especially for men, about being the finished product, right? Which is interesting to me because when we look at most men, like you're not going to be the finished product till you're like in your 40s, right? 40s, 50s. But we can go down that rabbit hole another point in this conversation, right? However, she was like, when you're at the point where you've stormed and informed, and now you're in your now you're developing your normal, it becomes very hard to try to develop your normal with another person because you guys' normals are completely different. And you spent so much time living around a focus of you that it becomes almost hard to develop that selflessness, right, to be with another person. And that was the first time I was like, damn, she really changed my perspective. Because in the back of my mind, I'm like, you know what, relationships have been great. I kind of run in these cycles a little bit, but I'm kind of cool and like, I know that I'm a healthy dude. I'm okay with like just being focused on one thing for right now, and I'll worry about relationships later. That was my mindset, and that was the first time that I heard a perspective that made me question that. Like, oh man, and I was like, damn.
If you worry about it later, it's gonna be harder later,
right? Because you've developed so many habits, like you're just rocked into your own shell of like living and how you view things. And now it's like you're trying to bring another person into the picture. And it feels like you have to like literally
rip out everything.
You know what I'm saying? And I was like, damn, I never really thought about it. Like nobody never explained this to me like that. You know
that's sound advice when you really think about it, bro. That's why Naeem and I work. Because like right now, granted, there was a period where when we got back together, we had to learn about each other more, right? Because obviously you guys, we were young, we were teenagers when we first were in our relationship, and now we're like early adulting and figuring things out. So we had to learn each other. But after we went through that period, it was easy because we already had most of the foundation from when we were teenagers. And I'm glad we did it that way because we had to do some learning in between so that we would be set up to be successful in this stage of our relationship, bro. But I can imagine like if we were like 30, 35, you know what I'm saying? Like it would be harder. Like if I was this Kizzle now and I was meeting Naima, not meeting her, but like we were trying to get back together, it would be harder because it's like I got the podcast going, I got all these different things going, and now I'm trying to figure out all these things.
Where you fit in.
Yeah, where do you fit in? But also like, is this even really worth it? Because I'm still having to evaluate those.
You have to evaluate at a different level because you just like setting time aside is a little bit of a higher stake for you now.
No,
you know
a little bit, way higher of a stake now.
Right.
Let's talk about the entrepreneurship thing, bro, because people don't understand the time for an entrepreneur is way different than time for a person that works a 9 to 5. And this is no judgment. I still work my 9 to 5, right? This is no judgment against anybody that works a 9 to 5. But when you have entrepreneurship, you really begin to understand the importance of investing your time. I say investing because that's very important. Investing your time. Whatever you spend time in, if it's not going to lead to revenue or your business growing, it's really almost like a waste of time. You get what I'm saying? So when you're spending time elsewhere and you're not even sure, it can become it's hard to rationalize those things, which is what we were talking about
Mad
before.
hard, because you always feel like in your business, like there's never enough time anyway.
Exactly. And that's the reality.
Literally, like I remember when I first, a couple of years ago, when I would find myself like going out with, old friends, people who just didn't have the same lifestyle I was, right? Fair. I remember being like, yo, I got mad shit to do right now. I'm kind of having a good time. I should probably be locked in right now. And just having like that inability to just be present in those moments, which I had the question like, should I really be focused on being present here? Should I be putting time on my craft? Like that's when I started to experience those moments of like, I feel like I can never find enough time to do the things I need to do in my business, let alone now that I'm just here at whatever this event or this social gathering that I really don't really care to be at.
Yeah.
Like, why am I here?
Right.
And so it's like, but that's just a small microcosm of it. Like, especially when you start to think about, man, do I want to spend time with getting to know this young lady? You know what I'm saying? Or whatever the case may be. Like, you're just looking at your time differently because every time that, like, you don't get that back. So it's like, I'm going to spend time here, or I'm going to spend, like, time is you're taking a piece out to put a piece in. And that's really what it looks like. And so at the end of the day, it's like, you're really looking at those pieces like, I don't know.
Yeah. Let's break this down now, because I think I have a framework. Not a framework, but I think I have some advice or things that could potentially help with this. One, as I sit and I listen to you, I'm realizing for you probably, bro, it's going to be harder for you to be with someone that's not an entrepreneur. And the reason why I'm saying that,
it's like both.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to be with somebody that's an entrepreneur too.
No, but here's what I'm saying. Let me round it out so you can understand why I'm saying that too. Because if you're not with someone that can really, truly understand the entrepreneurial mindset, it's gonna be hard for them to understand why you're the way you are, why you're the way you are. And then on top of that, when we talk about the forming and norming, it's gonna be hard for them to form and norm to what your normalcy may be, because they're not used to that.
Yeah, that's a fact.
So I think for you, bro, it may be important for you to spend time at like conferences and like events where there's like-minded, not even just like-minded.
I know where to meet him. I know where to meet him. Look, bro. That's why I said, like, look, I experience every side of the spectrum, bro. You know what I mean? Every side of the spectrum, bro.
Tyson, I ain't got no problem meeting him.
The realtor, the entrepreneur.
But here's what I'm saying, though. Each of those have different, if we're going to go back to the forming and norming, they have different ways in which they form and norm.
Correct.
A realtor is going to be different than someone that's doing content creation.
Correct.
They're also going to be different than someone that's doing fitness.
Right.
So you may need to find someone that's lit. Like when I say in entrepreneur, I mean literally like doing almost the same exact thing as you.
You know what's crazy though, bro?
What's up?
So, even within that can get kind of tricky. Because,
why is that?
And this is why I really talk about you got to understand yourself. Like, so one of the best things I ever did is last year I just took a whole break from dating.
Okay.
I was like, I broke up with my ex at the time, and I was just like, yo, you know what? It's given a I was like, it's given a focus on you, King. See, I swear to God, bro. It was one of the best things I ever did too.
I love it.
Because I got to sit down and not be distracted.
Yeah.
And I would journal. I just started journaling like all the things that I desire from a woman. And yes, being entrepreneurial minded is one of them. But there's context behind that. Because you got two different types of entrepreneurs. You got a woman who's an entrepreneur that wants to be the head of the show. You got a woman who's an entrepreneur that who also enjoys being a helpmate to another entrepreneur, right? Because everybody just, again, we all have different personalities and archetypes. Some people don't know how to kind of sit within a flow, or they don't know how to open up the capacity to be of that level of assistance or that level of mindfulness towards another person just like them.
Yeah.
Right? So like, even when you go into the context of it, for me, because I've dated entrepreneurs. Most of the women I would say I've dated were entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial in some way. Right? And so again, value systems can be aligned, but even like understanding the type of personality that a woman has, right, in alignment with yours, right? Like I typically enjoy a woman with a little bit more of a cooler temperament because I'm not hot-headed, but I'm just very strong-headed. I'm very strong-headed, a very strong opinionated.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
So like
you need someone that's gonna bring you down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And just understand that. So it's like, even beyond like, yo, I need a woman who's an entrepreneur. It's because the other side of it is like, sometimes that doesn't always work out financially either.
Right.
Because you trying to figure it out, and then I'm like figuring it out, but maybe I'm not at the level where it's like I'm just gonna. Because a lot of women who are entrepreneurs just be wanting dudes to take care of them. I dated in Atlanta for a little bit, so we ain't gonna go too much into that. However, which is fair, right? Look, people gotta get it how they gotta get it, but sometimes there's always these different vulnerabilities inside a relationship, and that's gonna be with anything. But I think one of the things that having a focus on you King season did for me is it allowed me to really, and I think I'm about to have another one of those seasons, which we'll talk about that. I think because I don't think I did it long enough. I think I jumped back into my temptations to to want to date again. Because I just love women, bro. But anyway, I swear to God, bro, I love me a black woman, bro. You know what I'm saying? But that don't mean it's always time for you to be leveled on a black woman. Sometimes you gotta, but I'm gonna go back though. In that season, bro, it allowed me to take time to learn myself and also learn the type of woman that I really could see myself with. You know what I'm saying? Down to culture, down to values, down to how she sees certain things, how she interacts with my personality and like, you know, just the things I be needing sort of psychologically. And so, you know, sometimes you got to really be able to just kind of, because I don't really think it's always a category thing. You know, I dated a woman that was not an entrepreneur at all one time, and I had a great relationship with her. You know what I'm saying? Because she was, she just had certain things about her that really, really appealed to the way that, to the type of chemistry I like to have with a woman. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I feel like there's always, I don't like to coin it and box it in as like, you got to be this, you got to be that no more. I think it's really about chemistry and compatibility.
No, you're right. You're right. I think the reason why I went to the entrepreneur route is because I started listening to what you were saying about entrepreneurship. And I'm like, man, what I really was getting at is that you need a helpmate, bro.
That's precisely the better word.
Yeah, you need a helpmate.
You know what I mean?
And I think this is true for everybody, but especially when you're doing entrepreneurship, you need more help than the person that's in the 9-to-5, bro. Yeah. Because entrepreneurship is something that a lot of us haven't been taught how to do, right? Yeah. And it takes a lot out of you, like you talked about with the anxiety, with frustrations, all those different kind of things. If you don't have a true helpmate that's really gonna support you through those times and like really push you, it's gonna be hard, bro. It's gonna be real difficult. And then it's gonna be even more hard. It's gonna be even harder for you to prioritize those things because you're like, yo, man, I'm not prioritizing you. You're not even prioritizing me. You're not helping me with nothing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's gonna be harder for you to find reasons as to why you should do that. And I think, honestly, now that I think about it, bro, one of the reasons why I love Naima so much, bro, even though we do long distance, I feel Naima's presence through everything that I do, bro. Yeah. Everything that I do, I feel her presence, bro, because she's always supporting. She's always finding ways to support. She's always trying to make sure that I'm good, bro. And so I can always recall, like, it's easy for me to make an investment in her because I'm like, yo, you're already investing in me. One of our principles is you treat me good, I treat you better, right? So we always are like one-upping how we support each other. And I think one of the reasons why my past relationship really didn't work out is because as much as I wanted things to work out, I just didn't feel that support, bro. Yeah. I'm doing entrepreneur stuff.
What do you feel like support looks like to you? Because I feel like there's layers to it.
No, absolutely, bro. There's absolutely layers to it, and for sure.
I'm gonna let you.
Go ahead. Say what you're saying.
I'm gonna give you an example. Right? I dated a woman that, from a support level, like she held it down in a lot of different ways. Like she was a helpmate in a very sort of like traditional. Like she cooked for me, cleaned for me, like I know like people be talking about this home cooked meal shit, whatever. I like a home cooked meal. I'm West Indian.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm a health guy, so I don't like food that's being touched by. I don't like Uber eating and all that. So like she would cook every single meal for me. She was truly like amazing, right? But there were certain, because she wasn't an entrepreneur, because she didn't understand my mindset, there were certain times where I might be struggling mentally, and just because of just her, maybe just a gap there, she just couldn't give me that level of understanding, comfort, or support that I needed there. Like she just didn't know how to give it, right? And then I would feel like I was like coaching her on how to give it. And then that becomes like a whole thing. And it's like, and I get it, look, you're never gonna find a perfect person. But I think that even when you look at support, I've had to rearrange in my mind after experiencing a relationship like that. Like what like you're not gonna get everything. So what is the support that's most important to you?
Yeah, and this is the thing, bro. And I'm glad you said that because there are different levels, bro. There's so many different levels. For me personally, Naima, she's just really good with all different aspects of it, bro. Like I'm keeping it stacked with you, bro. Like when it comes to the emotional aspect, the mental aspect of it, bro, if I'm having a day or she knows something's, something like is bothering me or like some business venture just didn't work out, bro, if we talk on the phone, she's going to be there to listen. She's going to know how to support, what to say. Yeah. And at the end, after I finish saying what I'm saying, she's going to give me that reassurance that, yo, bro, I know all this happened, but you still him. You're going to figure it out. Right. And that's what you be needing in those moments. You don't need, why you ain't talk to me for the last 3 hours? Exactly. You know what I'm saying? You don't need someone that's going to put you down in those moments or that's not going to know how to handle that level of vulnerability. And so that support is very important. But when I was talking about my ex, bro, it's like, I didn't get that support. I didn't get the check-ins, like how you doing? Like how's the business going? We barely talked about the business side of stuff. I didn't get the financial support, like, yo, I'm gonna buy this thing for your business. I didn't get any of that. And I feel like with Naima, all of those aspects taken care of, bro. I talk about camera equipment all the time. She recently, one of the things that she did was she bought me a new lens. She knew I'm trying to do the podcast in the crib now. Not trying, I'm doing the podcast in the crib. You know what I'm saying? And so she was like, okay, Christmas is coming up. Let me figure out how can I invest and help him out with what he's doing. Reached out to one of my friends, because she doesn't know anything about cameras. He knows stuff about cameras. Was able to get a lens, right? Not the lens we're using now, but one of the lenses that we use when we go and travel and do stuff. So there's 3 different, when I really have to break it down to you, bro, there's 3 different aspects of support, especially for an entrepreneur, that you need in a partner, right? So you need the financial support, and that doesn't have to be you paying for stuff all the time, but gifts here and there.
Financial understanding.
Yeah, or the financial understanding. Gifts.
Like that's a whole nother, you know what I'm saying?
For sure.
That's big. Like, I think that, because I'll be looking at social media, because you know me, bro. If I didn't have a business, I probably wouldn't be online. But I'll be looking at social media sometimes and the shit that people be talking about. Especially when we talk about, me and you had conversations on this whole, like how everybody loves to talk about a topic like this whole 50-50 dynamic. And I'm just like, I went to school for business and finance. I'm like, clearly, I can tell people don't budget nowadays. Like people just don't understand people just don't understand what it really looks like to grow financially as an individual, as a person, as a partner with a family. And so like, even when we talk about just like that financial understanding, you know what I'm saying? Like when you're an entrepreneur, you have your business and you have your 9-5, right? And so you understand that how important it is to have both of those, right? We start to think about like, okay, just because you're an entrepreneur and you're doing good, don't mean you're making money. A lot of times, most of the money you're making is going right back into the business, right? You experience times of volatility. It don't matter where you're at in success. I know people that is just starting out. I know people that's making close to 7 figures and 7 figures. It's always a level of volatility there. Do you have a partner that's understanding? Do you have a partner that just has these grave expectations of you that put you in these weird positions that you don't really need to be in, that you don't need to, experience. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely a lot of levels to that, especially when it comes to that financial side, because there's 2 sides to that. One is like, the support, but it's also like your understanding as well. You know what I'm saying? And it's the same thing with emotions as well, right? Like the support, but also your understanding. You know what I'm saying? Like I always say, like, you talked about something important, which was like,
what's up?
You might have a day where you have a partnership or something go bad, and you just not present. Is that woman intelligent enough to know to address you in from the level of what? I feel like I've been trying to get your time all day, and here you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, is she gonna address what you're lacking right now, or is she gonna look at you and understand you, right, and understand how to be a support? Right? Because she's valid to feel like, well, damn, I've been trying to get your time all day, and you just not here, right? That's valid for her to feel that way, but is she gonna react and respond in a way that creates a pattern of, I'm gonna always address you about your lack? Or do I understand what you do and what season you are in as a person, as an entrepreneur, as a man, for me to understand how to support? And that's a different level of emotional intelligence, you know what I'm saying, that a woman has to have. And like, I've been in those situations where it's like, damn, you know what, I have just been locked in, or I had to fire somebody, so I had to hop back, and it's part of my business, and I don't know when I'm coming home at night, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, are you gonna make me feel bad for that? Because there's certain things, there's certain capacity that I just can't control, right? Or are you gonna be understanding and figure out how we can work through this in a collaborative way? I think that there's those 2-sided coins when we start to talk about that support. One is like grace and understanding. The other one is like, just the actual, like, what I'm giving you. You know what I mean?
No, you're absolutely right, bro. And you already touched on 2 of the aspects, right? The financial the emotional. And I think the other part of it too is like the mental, which is like checking in with you, seeing where your mental is at on a day-to-day basis, bro, where it could be, yo, how's the business going? What's the strategy? What's the goals? Like Naima knows all of that because not only is she checking in, but she creates a space where I feel comfortable having those conversations and I can give you the game of what's going on. I don't feel like me talking about my business is like making you feel some type of way or like lesser than what she has going on or whatever. And that's part of my problem with my last relationship before Naima was like she would minimize it, like just completely. Like, oh, I'm in school to do this and your business. It's like, it was just like it's not a problem. You know what I'm saying? So like as a man, when you get what I'm saying? Yeah, when you dealing with that, bro.
That's not a good. That
yeah,
you could have been a total. That's the thing, though, bro. Going back to choosing the right partner. If you would have somehow rationalized in your mind and stayed with her, you'd probably be a totally different person.
No, absolutely, bro.
You probably wouldn't even be doing this right now.
No, absolutely not.
You would have felt like, man, what I'm doing is like not important, or like maybe I should just be doing something else.
Oh, absolutely.
That's how important I had those. Is.
No, exactly, because they frame your mindset, bro. I had those thoughts around that time, bro. And I literally, I did stop because I got I was close to, like, I was trying to get a new job, ended up getting my new job. I'm like, I'm not doing the business no more. It's not that big of a deal. But around that time where I stopped, we also ended up breaking up because that's when she cheated. All that stuff happened as well. And then finally, like, my bro was putting the battery back in my back to like, yo, start something. But I was real hesitant. And I'm not gonna say it was all the way because of the relationship, but the relationship obviously didn't play a great role in that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think it's important, bro. Like, you gotta have someone that's like able to help you in those different aspects.
Yeah.
And if you're not, you're right, it doesn't have to be an entrepreneur, but they have to be able to understand. I think the problem is a lot of times too, is that a lot of times there's a lot of women that don't understand that like men are allowed to have periods where they are struggling or dealing with something and not present to do all of their responsibilities.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the problem. Is like, we're not, like, some women don't have that level of emotional intelligence and understanding to give us grace in those moments. It's like, oh, you're not able to do this for me? Or, man, what the hell? What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And not able to speak to, okay, maybe you got this thing going on, whether it be through business, at work. One of the things that I really appreciate about Naima is that there was a time where we do long distance, bro. So when we get in person, that's big time. That's big. Yeah. We in person, even though I got business stuff going on, I'm supposed to be investing time with her because we in person for like a few weeks to a month at a time, right? Bro, around the time we get in person, I'm doing the 9-to-5 thing. I also have my business. My 9-to-5 just happened to just crank up right around that time. Like literally to the point where I'm working like literally like 10 to 8 every day for like 2 weeks.
And that's in the 9-to-5.
In the 9-to-5. So
that's not even a business.
Not even a business, bro. 10 to 8 from the 9-to-5. Yeah. Then the business is like, we in a slow season for the business, so the business can handle that. So I'm not really worried about the business too much. But at the same time, I'm like, damn, I'm supposed to be with Naya. I'm supposed to be spending time with her. I'm like, damn, bro. And I felt terrible about that. But she never made me feel like shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She was just like, yo, I understand. Like, this is what's going on. I would get out of work. I would be in the middle of work. I'd be tight. And she just come in and just console me and help me through. She's not, damn, babe, you still working? Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course she had moments. She's like, yo, babe, what time you gonna be done checking in and stuff? But she made me feel like, okay, it's okay for you to have these periods. And I think that's very, very important, bro, because you're not gonna always be level-headed Tice, or you're not gonna always be the Tice that's able to give as much as you need to give in a relationship.
And I think that that's one of the things that when I look at sometimes my like how I date, that's why sometimes I just find more peace in being single. It's being single because sometimes part of it is like, yo, again, going back to like the time, it's like I don't want to have to explain myself. I don't want to have to, and that's, and communication is important, but like I don't want to have to try to explain all these different things and get you to learn why that's an issue when you do that. Because now that makes it feel as if, you know, I'm being penalized for kind of doing what I'm supposed to. Yeah. Right. Because on one side, it's like, it's that tricky balance, bro, of like, and I think it was Anthony O'Neill says this. He's like, yo, I'm not going to mess up the foundation and the future in my finances for the husband, for my future wife, for whatever girl is around right now. And that I remember always hearing that in the back of my mind whenever I like maybe I'm talking to somebody, I'm getting to know them, and you know, they make a comment about like, you know, or like, oh, like you work too much, or like, I'm like, yo, like that's something where it's like I already kind of know where that's about to go, right? But even in the standpoint of relationships, like that right there, like, are you gonna when push comes to shove, are you only gonna think about you, right? Or are you gonna think about me and us? You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, like when you are dating an entrepreneur, you are just invested into them and their business as they are. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the other thing for me is like, I would say the reason why, because again, I feel like there's so many layers to this, bro. I also feel like, you know, me and you have these conversations about masculinity in its light for what we feel like it really is. I think that when you're a really masculine man, you like to solve problems, right? Now this is where I'm gonna circle back to. Sometimes it can be challenging dating another woman who's an entrepreneur, because I think that sometimes you can get distracted, right, from the stuff that you know you got to be doing by solving somebody else's problems, especially when they're in that closer proximity to you, and you have a desire to do it, right, and your chemistry builds off of doing that. You know what I'm saying? So the other side is like, do you have the level of self awareness, right? Do you have the level of self control to not get distracted? Because people think that, bro, I've been doing everything in my business, growing for like coming on 6-7 years now. Distractions, you're not about to find me distracted in the club turning up. My distractions don't look like that anymore. Like I've ascended that level of like, oh man, my distractions are different opportunities in business. Like even women aren't really a distraction for me anymore. Like I'm not in that space anymore where it's just like, man, I just get so distracted by my lust for women. That's just not really, I'm not really at that level no more, thank God. Distractions look different now. Distractions look like certain opportunities that aren't aligned with where I want to go. Right. Distractions look like, you know, how much capacity am I putting into another person beyond the capacity I really have? And I feel like those are one of those nuanced challenges, because look, I'm if you go talk to any one of my exes, they're gonna be like, he helped me kind of get it together. Because that's what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. Right? But the other side of that is like, that becomes challenging when I'm helping you get it together more than I'm helping me get it together. We said we was gonna go there, bro. We're gonna go layers and layers and layers in. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, say that again, bro.
Like it becomes a challenge when it's like, I'm helping you get it together more than I'm helping me get it together. And then again, that how does that circle back from a standpoint of it's self-resentment? And ultimately, if you have self-resentment, you express that in the relationship with your partner. You know what I'm saying? I remember dealing with a young lady that, you know, she was an entrepreneur and she was just a little bit all over the place. You know what I'm saying? And I was doing like, I wasn't paying her bills, but I got a brain that knows how to solve problems. And so I just found myself just working through a lot of my capacity, like helping her get her situated. I'm talking about like, I'm helping her invest in the right mentorships. I'm getting her getting stuff situated from like a credit standpoint, like just all this different kind of stuff. And I'm just like, it got to a point where it's just like, number one, this is, you know, we were talking. So I'm like, this is not my girl yet. Right. So am I over invested in here? Like, I don't really look at giving like that. That's just naturally like, if you come in with a problem and we have that type of chemistry, I'm naturally gonna want to help. Right. But it was also just like, sometimes you start getting wrapped up in other people's stuff, and you turn around and you're like, oh, yo, I missed out on this opportunity, or I wasn't even thinking about this. And it's like, yo, where your focus been at, bro? Yeah. And now you asking yourself, have you been too invested in another person's problems and another person's growth more than your own? And so now it's like, well, where is that line drawn? Right. You got to understand your capacity. Right. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes it's being real with yourself. Like, yo, I'm in a season right now that does require me to focus on, and this is whether
focus on you, King.
Well, you know, for me, it's focus on you, King. You know what I mean? Like, that's, bro, I'm telling you, man, sometimes the best thing that you can do is really, really have a season of solitude for yourself. I think it helped me develop my character, helped me understand my power, helped me develop my relationship with God. It helped me understand what I truly want in a woman, and it really helped me understand my relationship with just like, why did I have such a strong relationship with lust? You know what I'm saying? Because I haven't been the best in all my relationships either, right? You know what I'm saying? I've had a past before, you know, if I'm just being real. But for the most part, I've been good though. But so like you get to take all this time and sit with yourself and really learn about yourself. And I think that a lot of times men don't get a chance to do that. And so now you got to learn about yourself in a way where the mistakes that you may make or the misunderstandings that you have about what you really need or what you can really give, they come at the cost of the relationship. You know
or somebody else's health or whatever.
Somebody else's health, somebody else's well-being. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I also think like it's like this ebb and flow of, you know, understanding yourself, where you're really at, what you really have to give and provide. You know what I'm saying? Like I know for me, I'm a very romantic like partner with my lady. So like I know how I want to show up in certain ways, and I know how present. Because now we're gonna go into another layer, which is like when entrepreneurship is going good for you, like when it's lit versus when it ain't lit. I'm not like, listen, bro. I'm building my relationship with God. I'm becoming more grounded, and I would say, humbly speaking, I'm a pretty grounded guy. But I just show up different when my situation is lit than when it's not. When it's not, you dealing with anxiousness, you dealing with uncertainty, you dealing with potentially shame and guilt from bad decisions, right? We all done fucked up a bag before. We all done brought in the wrong person into the business, bought the wrong thing. Just trust me, bro, I know. Like I know what it's like to be like, and then now just like one decision later, it's like, fuck, I feel like I gotta start from ground up in a way. We know what it feels like to go through those ups and downs. And I think that because of that volatility, right? Sometimes it's not that you're a different person, but like
you're in a different stage. You're
just in a different space. So it's like I might meet a woman where I'm in an up season and I'm like, I might be God sent to her. Like, oh my God. But then all of a sudden, if I'm in a down season or if I'm in a struggle season, if I'm in a challenge season and I'm dealing with a little bit more anxiousness, I'm dealing with a little bit more uncertainty, right? I may not be as present in certain ways. I may not be as consistent on certain things. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you used to bring me flowers like every day. Now it's like, because my mind is in different places.
Right.
And so I'm still learning how to manage that in my journey. But again, is it a woman's job to give you grace there? Again, I guess it depends.
Right.
If it's just for like what I want or what I need, it's fair to say, nah, like I'm not trying to give that grace there. But she's thinking about you and your future and the version of us. It's like, yo, you know what? Number one is I understand you. I understand where you're at. I understand where we could go. And so like let's walk and talk this too. Because I'm not for gaslighting women on their needs. Your needs are your needs.
Yeah.
Because I got needs too.
Absolutely.
Right? However, it's a matter of, but that's where you got to make those executive decisions where sometimes it's not even a bad breakup or some misalignment. It's just like, yo, I don't have the capacity to give you all your needs in every way right now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I feel like that's where I stand in because I haven't always been real with that.
Yeah.
I've been like, yo, you caught me in a good season. I'm lit. And now you're ringing my nerves down a couple months later because maybe I'm not in that season. Maybe I'm in a different a space of growth. I need to spend more time in my business. I'm more stressed out.
Yeah.
And like the things that I naturally just like, I was there for, now it's like, I just ain't got to, I like my mind, my space is not there in this moment right now. And you're expressing a level of disappointment or you're pointing out a level of lack. And I'm just like, yo, you're right. It's just, like I'm only one person, you know what I'm saying? I can only be stretched in so many different ways and capacities. And so it goes back to like, shit, you know, that's why I'm challenged. That's the cycle that I'm in right now, bro. I'm working through and I'm, you know what I'm saying? I'm working to sort of break, to be honest. And I think that for me, it all boils down to being real with myself and developing a deeper relationship with God. If I'm just being honest.
Let's talk about that though, right? Because how are you gonna do that? Is that gonna be the focus on you, King Season? Like how is
okay? That's what it's about.
Bro. So let's talk. Let's dive into that. What does that season look like for you?
So I would say that I'm in an interesting space right now with my relationship with God, where I've learned that you can only go so far leaning on your own understanding. I've always been I would say a fairly, and I don't want to boast my horn here, but I've always been a friend that's all like you can depend on. Like I've always been a thinker, right? And so for a lot of times, I feel like I've had a potentially shallow relationship with God for a lot of my life, because I always felt like he just gave me what I needed, and that I can just figure most things out on my own. But again, as you start to grow and you start to evolve as your man, and you realize that in order to, like, not every decision is just like one-sided, right? Like you talked about, like I had to make the decision of whether it was spending time with my lady, right, with the time that we barely get, or going to this event that was a huge opportunity. And I chose that over late. Both of those decisions had consequences,
for sure,
right? And so I think that you get to this point where you start to realize that there's a level of selflessness, and there's a level of leaning in on faith at a way higher level than just your own understanding that you need to be able to make decisions and feel aligned with who you are, right? And I feel like without that, right, without that gap, you're just consistently leaning on your own understanding, and you'll just kind of go in circles, right? And that's why for me, I've kind of come into this place where developing my relationship with God is so important, because I felt like for so long, I've just been like, I'm gonna figure that out. And it's like, you can only figure it out until you know you don't got the answers no more.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's just me be vulnerable, like, because I know that there's somebody else that's probably dealing with something similar.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they might be on the way to getting married right now. And they like, yo, should I, because the other side is like, I can't be performative in relationships. So like, I might meet this beautiful woman of God, and she might inspire me, but I can't become a fake Christian because she is deeply rooted in God, maybe potentially more than I am. Because that's another thing, bro. I feel like as you evolve, you start to attract better quality women. At least in my
for sure,
my own understanding, at least in my own experience.
And let me stop you right there. That's why whenever folks are like, where you find them at, where you find these good women at, I'm like, oh, you haven't worked on you enough yet. If you asking where do you find good women at, you haven't worked on yourself enough. I'm gonna keep it. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, not, victim blaming if you're in a bad situation, whatever the case may be. If you don't know where to find good women, or you don't know where to find good men, the problem is probably you, because they out here. But go ahead, continue what you're saying.
I agree. That's why even when we used to first chop it up, when we used to look at all these Red Pill podcasts, I used to be like, bro, I've been pulling them since a young age. I never dealt with a lot of this, right?
Yeah, that's
what
I'm saying.
But again, it's like I've always I got into like self-development when I was like 19. It was my freshman year of college. And I was selling a lot of weed at the time, right? And I was driving up, I had to go re-up, and I was driving up with like a pound of weed on me up to school. I was going to school in the Catskills, and I got stopped, I got arrested. And again,
in the Catskills?
Yeah, I was driving. So I got arrested, and by the grace of God, I got arrested right where you go from, because I had originally had like a little petty weed charge from when I was in high school on my record. And in New York, they give you like this probationary period. I don't know if they still do it, right? Now, the thing is like, I'm going to school. So I know, what I'm saying, the FAFSA, like if you got a drug charge, it messes up your FAFSA. You can't get aid. And I literally got caught within that 6-month time range. Not within the 6-month time frame.
Right after it?
It was after it. However, if I was in New York, I would have got that on my record, right? And I had my scale on me. I had all my baggies on me. Like it was like,
you had a quick,
it was almost like I think I was moving. It could have been like the lowest level of a felony, I think. And I remember like I was like 5 or 10 miles over the state line into PA. Because when you're driving up to the Catskills, you go through like New York, right? And then you go into like Patterson. I don't know if it's Patterson. You go through the PA. And so I caught this charge, bro. And I remember like it fucked up my whole semester. Pat gone. Money fucked up. I got to pay for this lawyer. Lawyer was like 11 grand. I didn't tell my parents about it.
Word.
Only person I knew was one of my family members that helped me. He just got me a quick $1,000 to put down for the down payment for the lawyer. Lawyer came through, he handles it, but now I'm just down. I'm bad. I'm down bad. And I felt like at that time I had built a lot of my identity off of just like the way I was making money. And I remember that's when I first picked up the autobiography of Malcolm X, and I first got into self-development, right? And so I say that to say, I've been like, before like self-development was a thing, right? I was just always like, that was the first time I used to hate reading. That book made me love reading, bro. I started to just really learn about who I was as a black man, learn about, I just really got into like wanting to invest in myself at the highest level. And I kid you not, bro, because of that, I think that that's the reason I've never really had issues with women. It's because I've always invested in my mind. You just carry a different energy when you are somebody that is consistently investing in your mind in a way that you think. You walk with a different level of certainty in yourself. So I'm listening to these pods and I talk about like I retract toxic women. They don't come near me. I don't know what it is, bro. Well, I do know what it is. they just because I just walk with that energy, and I feel like I'm not speaking from a space of self-boasting, but also like other people I know that walk certain ways. It's like, yo, I see the way that they invest in themselves and they value themselves as men. So like when you're really putting that intention on you, like all that other stuff, it's just like it's like you're aligning, just your vibratory alignment is at a different level and you're just gonna naturally attract. Like when we talk about the conference and stuff, it's like, I would tell somebody like, yo, you talk about all these men, where do you live and where you going? I could tell somebody like, yo, okay, why don't you go to an event where men who are doing stuff, who, you know, wanna evolve are at.
Right.
Who value those things. But I could also just say like, look, even if you went to that event, if you was the type of person that just wasn't ready for those type of men in your life, vice versa, the type of women in your life, you wouldn't attract them.
Yeah, you're not.
You know what I'm saying?
Because you can, that gets sniffed out real easy, bro. Trust and believe me, bro. I had this one time when before me and Naeem were together, I was in that period of like, I was about to have a focus on you King season, but then Naima ended up like, right around the time I was about to have that season, we ended up like starting to talk again. But in between that time, right, like before I started talking with Naima, I was talking to this other girl, and I remember I was like, yo, we should go on a date. I was getting ready to plan the date, but before we planned the date, we ended up getting on FaceTime. And I'm talking to her on FaceTime. She started telling me about how like she's cut people off real quick, and that's one of her problems, and that, you know, she'll cut people off without even talking to them about stuff. And I was just like, why would I invest money in going on a date with this woman? She sounds nuts. Yeah. So after that, I was just like, nah, I'm not going, we're not like, I'm good. We don't gotta go on a date. But the problem is like a lot of times folks, you wouldn't even have that conversation beforehand. You're so thirsty to get on a date. You're just going on a date with whoever, right? Then you go on a date and now you're starting to have those conversations. And then instead of you realizing, okay, this was a throwaway, I'm not going to actually continue investing in this, you still continue investing in it because you're like, you know, finally someone's giving me attention, because you're not in a place where you actually value yourself.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And I'm speaking from experience because in my past relationship, when I was with my ex, I didn't value myself enough to leave that relationship when I wasn't getting what I needed. I thought to myself, you know what, I can get her to love me enough if I just keep on talking to her about stuff, or if I keep on and trying to invest in her, or I keep on putting time and energy into her.
That's what a real simp is.
You get what I'm saying? Nah, seriously though.
That's what a real simp is.
Truly.
A simp is just a man who doesn't value himself. He doesn't understand who he is, his value system, and he's just willing to he finds his identity in being with a woman, getting walked all over on, and trying to do anything to make that woman happy. Now, don't get it confused. It's not I do. A simp is not a man who does manly things for his woman, right? Who holds the door open and who talks to his woman with respect. Like, that's not a simp. A simp is just somebody that don't know their value. You know what I'm saying? And they're trying to find that value in a woman, and they're just being walked all over, right?
And you know what's crazy, bro? If we really be honest about like a lot of the simp conversation, like a lot of the content around it, the reason why people like that content so much is because a lot of men, if I'm keep the stack with you, bro, a lot of men have seen themselves in that light, where they've been in relationships where they were the simp. I'm not afraid to admit it. I was in a relationship where I was a simp. And with my ex, I was definitely simping, for sure.
I think we've all been a simp at least once.
Of course, bro.
My first love, I was a simp. Because I didn't know nothing about purpose.
Exactly. You don't know nothing
I didn't
about
go through
anything.
my valley of despair yet, where I had to really determine who I was as a man. Like, I was 17.
Right, exactly.
And so, like, some guys, they just never actually got up out of that. Because you can tell when some dudes just naturally just hate women because of their experience with them. You know what I'm saying? Because when I see a lot of guys have these different conversations, I'm like, bro, I get where you're going, but I can see through the energy, your temperament, you're willing to really just want to put somebody down, that you don't like women because you haven't had a great experience with them. Like when I watch a Fresh and Fit podcast, I know people who are like, yeah, man, these dudes be. I was like, yo, I ain't even gonna lie. I can just tell who these dudes were when they were younger and the type of treatment that they got from women.
Oh my, bro.
And,
you know what's so crazy?
You know what I'm saying? Because I always thought that they was kind of corny.
Bro.
I still do.
Bro.
And you could just tell that they, you know what I'm saying? Like, look, even without, because it be those same type of cornballs that like, you just happen to stumble upon a great opportunity career-wise, and now you got money, you saying women only want you for your money because you're a weirdo and that's all you got to offer. Like you don't have anything else about you outside of the fact that you have financial resources that makes a woman be appealed to you, right? And now you're painting this picture that all women want is money. I would digress. When I was broke, I did well with women. When I was up, I did well with women. Like I've never had to like stop a relationship because I felt all a woman wanted was my money. Never. Like that's never been an experience for me. You know what I'm saying? I've met women that they take a liking to dudes with money and seeing, again, because I value myself, seeing like, okay, I kind of see where your value, because that's a value system thing. That's not like, that's a value system thing. And I've seen that, like, again, I understand my value. Like, yo, I see like sort of what's your taste. I'm not that. Like, I value myself enough to say, you look good, but I'm gonna fall back. I'm gonna fall back. I'm gonna stay in my lane.
A lot of men don't know how to do that, bro. And I want to talk to you about this, bro. I want to talk to you about the Focus on You King season and identifying what you want in a woman. Because when we talk about you being able to step back from a woman that looks good and saying, you know what, this ain't the one for me.
Facts.
A lot of men aren't able to do that. Why? Because they don't have the list of things that they're looking for. The only thing that's on their list, and I say this all the time, people probably know where I'm going. Big ass, nice titties, nice face, right? That's probably the only few things that's on their list, right? So let's talk about that, bro. How do you identify in that season what you are looking for?
All right, I'm interrupting this podcast episode to let you guys know to leave a review on the podcast. Please, 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 if you are listening to this episode and you're finding value in this episode, you're enjoying the conversation, or you've enjoyed a previous episode or conversation, and it's safe to operate your phone right now, please leave us a review. Your review is a free and easy way to support us, and it helps us reach more people like you. We're on a mission to build a stronger, more connected Black community, starting with Black men. And you can help us on that mission by taking a minute out of your day to leave a review. Your review helps us generate more listeners, which in turn generates more revenue, allowing us to expand the platform even further. So please take a few seconds out of your day. I know you're busy. I understand. I know you're doing a lot, but it will help us greatly if you would just take a few seconds out of your day to leave a review right now. Did you leave a review yet? All right, let's get back to the episode.
I think first thing I think me personally, in my experience, I'm speaking from my experience. The first thing that you got to do is identify who you are and what you want from yourself first. You know what I mean? I think that when we start to have a conversation around what you want in a woman, you know, I've had a lot of experiences with great women where I'm like, these are really the things that stick for me. You know what I'm saying? Like I love a woman that understands my culture. You know what I'm saying? So like I'm West Indian. You know what I'm saying? Like I know I want to wake up, you know what I'm saying, to some West Indian music on a Sunday. You know what I mean? And that's not like a weird thing.
Right.
I want a woman to not look at cooking for me as like some subservient thing.
Right.
Like, oh, I'm a slave. Like, nah, that's just kind of normal. Because I mean, I cook too. You know what I mean? But even just spending time with yourself and understanding, like, focusing on a man that you want to become and who's a woman for him. Because there's been plenty of times where I dated a woman for the man I was at right now. And the relationship was great until it stopped serving my ego. And now it's like, I want more. right? And that's when we start to talk about things we're men for, sure. Like I've done that, right? So because that's essentially dating, like that's essentially, when I look at that at the highest level, it's like you're settling for less, but you're settling for less and you know it, but you don't know it because it's not presently settling for less. Like it's like right now, I need to look like this. I need this. We need to have a certain type of chemistry. Like even like chemistry and compatibility are two different things, bro. Right? So it's like, okay, cool. I done had experiences like I had one experience. I'm talking about a time when I cheated on a woman. Like that whatever gene it's in my grand uncles that had them have 12 different kids and that shit came out, bro. I don't know what it was, but it's because I dated a woman for where I was at right now, right? Which is she looked good, she do this, she do that. But then when it stopped serving my ego and I realized I wanted more and I wasn't getting that from her, like I started stepping out on a relationship. You know what I'm saying? And so like I knew that was coming from me not dating a woman for where I was going. You know what I mean?
Explain that. What do you mean by where you were going?
Like your current palate. You know, I was talking about this with Tyson from the Hardly Initiated podcast the other day. Like your current palate, like you're like just it be them small things, bro. Like maybe looks are really strong on your list, right? Maybe certain things that a woman does are really strong on your list, but the man that you want to become, like he's not as that worried about looks. He's not as worried about looks and his wife as much as he is her character, right? As much as her relationship with God, as much as her value system, as much as her ability to understand him. You know what I mean? Because look, brother, I'm gonna tell you, man. Sometimes when you go down on the looks, you'll find like this is a real conversation. Because I really like attractive women, right? Like hyper attractive women in whatever sense that may mean, because everybody got their different things. Yeah. But like even from a look standpoint, I would say that some of the best relationships I've been where women had the best character, they just like that little, when you got this little thing, especially when you get to know somebody that's like, yeah, but everything is dope, but that just ain't it for that, right? Bro, I'm telling you, the best relationships that I had were with women who have really, really great characters, but the looks part, it was always something. Like, but I feel like she's just not perfect like I had the last one, or like I feel like she could be a little bit flyer or whatever. It's that petty whatever thing is, and it's just like I've experienced that before, right? So it's like at a certain point you gotta start realizing what your palate is now and what you want now versus the men that you want to become. You want to have a family, you want to be successful. You know what I'm saying? I think that a lot of my friends are older. So I started really looking at relationships differently and assessing my relationship with God. When I would look at some of my friends who were a little bit further down the line in that commitment and relational dynamic, like they were married, and I just asked a lot of questions, and a lot of them would talk about like just like number one, choosing the right woman, right, and not choosing a woman for vanity reasons, right. But again, circling back to like knowing who you are, a relationship with God. Does that woman have a relationship with God, or does she only have a relationship with herself? Right. And so I think these things all come into play when you start to think about a focus on you, King Season, is about taking time to understand who you are and who do you want to become. And when you start to think about the woman that you want, who is the woman that is aligned with the man you want to become? Because that may not be the woman who's aligned with who you are and just your current desires right now. And I think that's when you got to start stepping in and make those executive decisions, right, for yourself that align with your future and not just align with your current circumstances or your current desires.
I think I have the title for this episode.
You feel me?
Focus on you, King.
Focus on you, King Season.
Facts.
Yo, let me ask you. Coin that up, man.
Nah, for real, you need to. Let me ask you, what are you doing in this time? What does that look like for you?
So for me personally, so I was practicing abstinence at the time.
Oh, they already tuned you out.
I mean, we can talk about that though, right?
They already
that don't mean I was perfect at it.
You said what?
That don't mean I was perfect at it. But that was my practice at the time.
Yeah.
But because you gotta think about it, bro. A lot of we do a lot of thinking with our dicks.
Oh, for sure. I would say probably 99% of our decisions.
And again, abstinence wasn't about the not having sex. It was like, where does even when you start to look at, like, I want you to write a journal prompt of like, here's the woman I desire. And then spend 60, 90 days in abstinence, specifically retaining your seed. And watch how that changes. Watch how that same prompt of the woman that you want, it will evolve. Because what happens is when you're retaining your seed, you go through like a couple of different phases, right? First phases is like this this sort of when you put you in a rehab,
you have an urge to want to have sex.
This like wild urge, right? Yeah. And so you're like muscling through it. But then you find like this space where it's almost like fasting. Like after day 2, you just realize like, I'm good without the food. Like you got past that physiological urge, right? And you start to, now it's like, okay, where does all that thought capacity go? You know what I'm saying? And you start to realize how much of that thought starts to go to things that matter. You know what I'm saying? So now you got things like, okay, well, what do I really want in a woman? Like, I'm spending all this time inside of my business, and I think that it makes me think about even like celibacy and all that type of stuff differently. I can almost guarantee, like, I had a relationship a couple of years ago that I was in, and the woman I was in that was a virgin, she was celibate. And I couldn't do that shit. Like, because at the time I didn't really have a relationship with God, and I just like, this didn't make any sense to me. Well, you telling me what? It didn't make any sense to me. I was just like, yeah, I'm not about to do that. Like, and now going through that, I realize you're gonna be able to get to really know a person when you take a lot of that lust, a lot of that desire out the situation.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
It's hard. It's not easy, right? But it's almost like even when you think about abstinence, it's like you're trading in a lower pleasure for a higher pleasure, right? Like you're trading in a lower pleasure of like, I'm running around doing whatever I want, satisfying my needs right now, versus like I'm putting my spirit and my mind and my capacity into my purpose right now, right? And so just going through that period of like, in the Focus on You King season, if you can just start to abstain and just really just focus on you, focus on your relationship with God. I journal a lot because I like to keep track of my thoughts, because sometimes I feel like I have so many thoughts that I never get a chance to kind of decipher, like kind of just go and shuffle through them and like organize them. Like I started journaling, like it got to the point where like I started journaling like 2-3 times a day, just because I'm just like, I would just be catching these downloads, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I stopped listening to rap music in the gym, and I started, because that's another thing, I was working out way longer. So now, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're trying to get in shape, I would definitely suggest that. Like your body, you got better focus, you got more discipline. But because I was working out for a little bit longer now, like I can only listen to rap music, especially in the morning, for like, I couldn't listen for so long. So I'm like, I had enough of this shit, to be honest. Right? I started listening to more podcasts. I started listening to more, I started getting tapped in with like, Dr. Miles Monroe and, different spiritual teachers and different people that was putting me on to game and giving me perspective that I had once never really understood. So now even my palate mentally changed. It's like my mental taste buds changed. And none of that would have been happening if my mind was still on some monkey brain. I just want to go kill something all day long, because that's what happens when you maybe are too overindulgent, right? Especially when we talk about our culture, like we have a hypersexualized culture, bro. Not just as Black men, but now it's just like period. Like you can't jump on Instagram without seeing something that's gonna appeal to just like it's gonna turn on your lust, bro. Yeah, literally. Yeah. So it's like, how do you develop control in that? How do you develop this ability to just know yourself and understand what you truly want? Right. And that's what that season is all about. It's all about shutting out the noise, shutting out the expectations of you. You know what I'm saying? To really focus on yourself and get grounded in who you are in a relationship with God. Because sometimes you just got to go through that season to really be prepared for what God wants for you. You know what I'm saying?
Man. You know what you also talked about that I want to touch on that's very important? You talked about earlier with God, you talked about how you had to lean on not just your own understanding. I think a lot of times for us as men, that's hard for us because we've been taught that we're supposed to have everything figured out.
Facts, bro.
You get what I'm saying?
Facts.
So when we
that's been my biggest struggle, bro. I read the Bible every single day.
Yeah.
Right. I study the Bible, right? And even when I go to, because I've never been a church person like that. Yeah. And I just started going to church back again recently on a couple of different occasions. And even when I go there, I'm like, why is there so much more women in church than men?
Yeah.
I'm like, I just noticed that. And that's something I used to notice when I was younger too, but I never really picked it up.
Yeah.
And I think that women have a natural ability. Even when we talk about, it's funny because I think it's that natural ability to submit to order.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like men just have a challenge with it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And bro, like for me, that's still one of my challenges that I'm working through right now.
Yeah.
You know, which is just learning to submit and learning what that submission looks like, feels like. You know, I talk to women all the time. It's like, God told me, and I'm like, did he come down and tell you? Or like, what do you mean? Like, is that just your intuition? Like, what's the difference in your intuition and God? Like,
right.
Because my intuition done saved me a lot of situations, but it also done sometimes my intuition has been driven by lust or what you would call the devil. Like, so I think that you know, when you start to get into that space of realizing that you can't figure things out yourself, my thing is like, I don't want to wait till I'm being humbled to develop a relationship with God.
Right.
I always say that you can make decisions from a place of pain, or you can make decisions from a standpoint of the future you and where you'd like to go. And that's how I kind of see working my relationship with God and just like really taking time to understand what that looks like and what that feels like for me.
Yeah. And one of the things that you touched on that I was gonna touch on is, right, so with us as men, it's hard for us to understand that we're not supposed to always have it figured out. And it's actually okay for us to not have it figured out. But what do you do when you don't have it figured out is the most important thing. And when you're not leaning on God, or you don't know how to lean on God, or you refuse to lean on God, you just make it so much more difficult for yourself, because now you're just banging your head against the wall day in, day out. You're still not making any progress. You feel bad because you feel like you're supposed to have it all figured out. When in actuality, bro, you just need to actually have a conversation and figure out if you're even going in the right direction in the first place. A lot of times you're just not oriented to where you're supposed to be going. You're not aligned with where you're supposed to be going because you're not having those conversations. So what you said about there being more women in church, that makes complete sense. Because like you said, it's easier for women, I feel like, in our society to submit to some type of being that's outside of themselves, right? For us as men, we have been taught, we believe that we're supposed to just always have it figured out. And it's like, bro, nah, that's not how it works. So I just did a keynote in Birmingham where I was telling them, I'm like, yo, bro, you're not supposed to just grind all day, bro. Like, I told him, I said, yo, don't let grinding stop you from praying. Because a lot of times that's the missing piece. Like a lot of men actually have the work ethic. They have the determination, the motivation to continue doing it, but you're not seeing success because you're not inviting God into what it is that you're doing. Right. So now you're doing all these things, you're investing all this time into it, but you're going in the wrong direction because God actually wants you going down there, but you're going down this way because you're so hell bent on, I'm gonna get it out the mud, I'm gonna figure it out, I'm gonna do it by myself, blah. Getting out the mud don't mean don't have conversations with God. Right. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think that's very, very important, bro. I'm glad you said you talked about reading the Bible. I went on my own journey with the Bible and just like my relationship with God towards the end of last year and now starting this year as well, where I just I think it was like 40 days consistently, I just read the Bible every day, bro. Yeah. I hadn't done that since college, where I would read a chapter a day. Yeah. Right. I didn't talk about it then, you know what I'm saying? Because I think it's important to spend those times to yourself. You're not telling everybody you're doing it. Like, your spiritual
relationship is for you.
Exactly, right? And so I spent the morning just reading a chapter, and in those mornings I would also journal, and I would do my takeaways, and I would pray, all that kind of stuff, bro. And initially I was doing it because I was in a period of my life where I was seeking out answers, and I just didn't have the answers to why things were going on the way they were going. And what it evolved into over time was not only me getting the answer. I got the answer bro, when I tell you I got the answer so clearly to the point where it was multiple days. Yeah. And this is what I was going to tell you about intuition versus God. I'm so glad God is speaking right now, right? This is what I was going to tell you about intuition versus God. When I read the Bible and I was seeking out answers, I got an answer and I was like, God, are you sure that's the answer? Then I'll get the answer again in a different verse. I'm like, God, you sure, bro? You sure? Like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing? Because I didn't want to do it. Yeah. I didn't want to do it. Then I get the answer again, bro. To the point where I promise you, bro, there were times where I'm seeking out an answer, I would get a verse. Cause I don't read verses, like I don't do devotionals or anything like that. I don't want anybody imparting what I should be learning.
Right.
So what I do is I literally go get a random verse. I literally have a random number generator on my laptop. I just click a random number and I grab the chapter of that number. Then in that chapter, I mean, not the chapter, I grab the book that matches that number in the Bible. Then in that book, I see the numbers of chapters and I go grab a random number between those numbers, and that's what I would read. And so when I was doing that, I would get a verse, I would get a chapter that I'm reading, and I'm seeking out an answer. I get this chapter. So I read the chapter, I'm like, okay, I think that's what it is. And when I'm going through the situation again, I'm like, yo, I really need to know what's going on. I literally got the same exact chapter, bro. Yeah. I'm like, nah, there's no way. Yeah. That's why when people talk about like, how you know God is real, blah, blah. I'm like, yo, when God is speaking to you, bro, you will see it consistently. It's not, intuition is gonna come up here and there. When God is speaking to you, it's gonna be a consistent thing over time where you can't question it, because there's no way that I will coincidentally get the same chapter randomly. You get what I'm saying? Like that's not, the only way that I can explain that is through God. And so for me personally, bro, like I've realized like in those situations, it's important to get clear about what it is that I'm looking for, seek it out. And then when I get the answer, I can sit on it and confirm it. But I'm gonna tell you one thing, God will confirm it for you, bro. So if it's not being confirmed, then it's probably not God. But God will definitely confirm it, because anytime I've questioned an answer from God, bro, I'm gonna tell you something. It has been confirmed, and the answer that I didn't want, bro, was he was telling me just to be patient, and I didn't want to be patient. I didn't want to be patient, but the verses kept saying patience, 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 and I'm not reading no verses that talk about patience right now. Right. So I know in that time that's what was needed for me, bro. So I'm telling you, bro, God will, when it's God's voice, you're going to hear it multiple times, and it's going to be consistent, and he will confirm it. When it's your intuition, probably going to be a one-off thing. If you sleep on it, you're probably not going to feel the same way the next day. You get what I'm saying? And I've heard other people explain it that way too, bro. So I would say if you're seeking out answers and you're reading the Bible, just keep reading. And if you get a certain answer and you're not sure, you're uncomfortable, you don't want to go down that right route, just keep reading. Yeah. And it will reveal itself, bro. And always pray about it. Always continuously pray about it, because when you pray, you invite God to actually now come into your life and give you those answers. If you're not praying, you're not opening up the pathway for him to actually have those conversations with you, bro. 100%. Nah, that's facts though, bro. Like that season is very important. To this day, I'm still reading the Bible, because it's become part of my spiritual practice. One of the things that I was lacking in, and I didn't even realize it because I was praying a lot, but I wasn't actually like receiving the word. I would pray, but I'm not receiving the word. And I was lacking in my spiritual practice. So I was doing the mental, I'm doing the emotional, I'm doing the social, I'm doing the physical, financial, I'm doing all those aspects of my holistic healing. But my spiritual aspect, which is honestly the most important, I was lacking in that because I wasn't reading, I wasn't going to church, I wasn't doing any of that stuff. So me starting that practice of actually actively reading the Bible in the morning, bro, it's been tremendous, bro. Like, so I highly recommend that, bro. I'm glad you said you're doing that too, because that's very, very important, bro. Especially as an entrepreneur.
100%.
Especially as an entrepreneur, bro. Let me ask you this, because we were supposed to talk about your upbringing, but we got into the whole relationship stuff because that was just a juicier conversation. But let's talk about that real quick, bro.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Say what you're saying.
No, I was saying we just gave them a whole bunch of layers.
No, for sure, because it's important for them to have that though. But let's talk about your upbringing, because I want to definitely touch on that before we end. You're Guyanese and Trinidadian.
Yep.
So West Indian, like you definitely are like two of the big West Indian like islands.
Well, Guyana's in South America.
Okay, true.
Guyana is the biggest West Indian country technically, because it's a country in South America. Borders Venezuela and Suriname, I think it is.
So Guyanese, y'all still consider yourself West Indian or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it was still part of the whole diaspora into West Indies, into the West Indies, into the Caribbean. So
okay. So let me ask you this about your upbringing. Do you feel like that has impacted like how you date or what you're looking for? I feel like you talked about that a little bit. Yeah. You feel
For
like?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. How so?
Man, I think that when I think about how I date and what I'm looking for, just culture, man. You know what I'm saying? I think that in the Caribbean, while things are definitely not perfect, there's just it's like a culture of love. Like I went back to Guyana last year, man, and it was just like just the culture of love that I was able to experience within my family, man. It's so strong. You know what I'm saying? And I think that combined with like, you know, the music, the food are just things that I enjoy. But I think that ultimately, you know, it's funny, man, because when we talk about the Holy Spirit, I often used to question how because I really appreciate my culture, you know what I'm saying? And I used to look at things like, yo, I don't know how my grandmother managed to work on a fixed income, yet still have money put set away for every single one of her grandkids, yet still be taking care of all of this, and still throwing the huge barbecues every weekend. Like, where did all this power come from? And it comes from, number one, family and culture. It comes from the level of, I would even say, worship that we have, you know what I'm saying, in our culture. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in a family that was West Indian, but, you know, they were Christian, you know what I mean? And just that love, bro. It's just different, man. I don't know how really to describe it, but there's just like that level of checking in on the other person's soul, you know what I'm saying, other person's spirit, that is very prevalent, at least in a part of my culture that I experienced growing up. Because I'm probably more familiar with my Guyanese side than my Trinidadian side. Like my Trinidadian side, I'm familiar with the culture just from like my mom's brothers and sisters and my grandmother. Whereas my Guyanese side, like my grandmother, her 13 brothers and sisters, you know what I'm saying? And then like the whole lineage down, like I'm familiar with all of the workings of that, right? And so for me, man, I think that has impacted my relationship with dating, with just one of the women who understands the culture, who understands that food is part of the way to my heart. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, you know what I mean? But it's hard to put a pin on what exactly it is. It's like just that factor of like, you know, of just a West Indian woman. Right? Especially a West Indian woman that is healed, that is like growth minded. Man, you can't go wrong. Like you can't go wrong.
No, you're absolutely right.
Can't go wrong.
Has your family tried to like pair you with someone from Guyana?
Nah.
No? Okay.
Nah. Okay. They haven't. My family's so damn big, and I think they don't got enough capacity to be doing a band parent on the Guyanese side. Like my family's so big in Guyana that they like my cousins and my uncles always tell me, yo, if you go, like, don't meet no woman in the neighborhood. She's more than likely your cousin. Like that's how big my family is. It's huge. You know what I'm saying? Because my great grandmother and great grandfather had 13 children. And then every one of them has like anywhere from 3 to like 9. One of them got 18. It's just a huge family line, bro. It's big, bro. And then even in Guyana, it just extends out even further. So it's just like, but nah, they never tried to pair me or anything like that.
Damn, y'all done populated the whole Guyana for real.
Facts. Like, yo, Orange Grove, bye. Nah, stay up out of there. But I said that to say, yo, size, I really didn't appreciate my culture until I got older.
Rarely. Explain.
Like I used to like only date Spanish women. Like, as I said, I went through my true self-development when I was like 19. But before that, it was only like pretty light-skinned girls and Spanish women that I only dated. When I was younger, I just didn't have that. I didn't have an appreciation for my culture. You know, when we talk about self-hate and just like those different dynamics of growing up with women and seeing different sides of them in your community. Like I was like that for up until college, and I would say I really started developing a strong relationship for just Black women as a whole, as I started to journey, understanding my roots, right? And in West Indian women specifically, just like when I really just started to have a better appreciation for my culture, you know? And it just naturally came with that. You know, I love all Black women, Black, African, West Indian, but it's just like, there's something about like that your lineage comes from like immigrants. It's something about that culture. And it's also, I think that just the level of collaborativeness there is in those type of relationships. When you have the right one, I feel like is important. Like I think like when you meet the right West Indian woman, she's really looking to build with you. You meet the wrong one, it's gonna be a headache for sure. But that's with any woman. But you meet the right one, like she's gonna be really willing to build with you, and we understand the value of just like hard work and what it really takes to build something, but also while still putting family and values first. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that Black women don't do that or African women don't do that. But again, I just like it's something about that familiarity in my culture. You know what I'm saying? That I just enjoy. You know what I'm saying? And I look at it as all Caribbean. So Guyanese, Jamaican, Trinidadian, Bayesian, Saint Vincent.
Oh, you.
You know what I mean? So Saint Lucia.
I've never been all through the Caribbean.
Haiti, all that, man.
Nah. One other thing I want to ask you, bro. We haven't talked too much about what you do as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But I know what you do involves a lot of mindset shifts.
100%.
Helping people to shift their mindset. What has got you to the point where you had to shift yours? Like I know you talked about like reading the autobiography of Malcolm X. But I think even outside of that, bro, like there's a lot of mindset shift that has to happen with just not feeling like you can't accomplish certain things and all that kind of stuff. I feel like you deal with folks that probably have that. How do you help them to get through that though? You get what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of limiting beliefs that people have. I'm trying to figure out like what does that process look like for you? How do you help them to kind of navigate that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I work sort of in the intersection of transformation. I'm gonna say sales, right? Because I think that a lot of I don't look at sales traditionally. I look at sales as enabling people to make decisions for themselves, right? Or to make a decision. And so when we start to think about, I've been in the transformation space. I started out my career as a fitness. So I was running a startup at the college, and I was training my client. Like I was a fitness coach on the side. Like I was a trainer. That's how I paid myself while I was like building a startup. Startup failed. I looked at my fitness business. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed like helping somebody learn how to work their body and how like, you know, if you ever read the book Psycho-Cybernetics, it talks about like when you experience a physical transformation, how impactful it is on your mental. So I really enjoyed the being part of the process where somebody literally changes themselves as a result of becoming healthy and changing their body. Then that's when I went into online coaching, started a Grind Tribe, and then eventually evolved up from there to helping business owners who run similar businesses like coaching, consulting businesses, fitness coaches, health and wellness coaches, helping them have the mindset shifts that they need to evolve their business, right? And I think that there's something so beautiful about transformation, bro, because we all like develop these limiting beliefs through experiences. We develop them through failures. We develop them through I call them imperfect teachers, right? Like, for example, I used to have a thing where like part of the reason I thought I had to work so hard is because I was Black, right? Because my grandma told me, you're gonna have to work as hard as the other mine just because you're Black, right? And while I knew they was looking out for me, that's what I call an imperfect teacher, right? So for all y'all that want to hate your parents for no reason, sometimes they just gave you imperfect lessons because they was trying their best. Because how that lesson manifested is when I was running a startup and when I used to run my business, I used to think I used to think that hard work was equated with success, and ultimately it was just equated with degrading myself and grinding myself down to the ground, right? So when we think about limiting belief patterns come from experience. It comes from something that we were taught, and so ultimately, I feel like in my profession, what I do is I help people get on track to doing the things that they need to do to yield success, right? And in that process, I'm helping them work through their limiting beliefs. So I do the same thing I used to do, helping people get in shape or helping men get in shape when I have somebody trying to grow their business, right? It's the same principles, right? The biggest thing though is like, you want to get in shape, you start going to the gym, you start the diet, and then you tell yourself, I messed up for a day, that turns into 3 days. Right. Or you tell yourself, you know what, maybe I just don't have enough time. Those are bad habits or limiting beliefs that were formed from your experiences, right? So that's when the real coaching starts, right? I don't just tell people what to do. I'm gonna tell you what to do. And when you get in your own way, I'm gonna come in and I'm help you develop a perspective that helps you learn how to think, right? And learn how to transcend a belief that was actually keeping you bound from the success and from the things that you need to be doing to drive success.
Right. So what are some of the principles that you feel like are important for someone that has limited beliefs to kind of help them to shift out of that?
I think some of the principles that are important for somebody that has limiting beliefs is we all have them, number one, right? So it's not like an uncommon thing. I think that is expectations. So there's a couple of different parts of it. Number one is that where you are right now is always a result of the way that you think, right? So we just sat here and we unpacked a whole bunch of different stuff about relationships. Like I know that where I'm at in my relationships, and I wouldn't really call it unsuccessful, right? Depends on what you're looking at. I've just been learning and growing, but that ultimately is a result of my beliefs, right? Maybe the fact that I think that it is better to be in solitude and get things together as a man first and get in a relationship. That's a limiting belief, right? Like that limiting belief was shedded when I had that conversation
about the storming, norming, and forming.
Correct, because that was my belief before. I was like, nah, I gotta have it all together, and then I'm gonna have the space and capacity, finance, all that stuff for the type of woman that I want. And for me to be able to be the type of man that she needs me to be, that limiting belief was shattered when I was introduced to that new perspective. So now I'm like, wait, that actually might not be the case, right? And so ultimately, that's what's happening when I'm working with people that I work with. You know, it could be growing your business. It could be something behind like sales. Like I talk about sales all the time because like, especially when we talk about businesses, Black businesses, most businesses fail just because they don't make enough money. They don't make enough money to hire the right people, keep the lights on. To keep the production, right? They just don't make enough money. And everybody, you know, in the world of social media where it's where we have to learn how to discern your social media brand from your actual business, right? Because those are two different things. At the end of the day, you still got to be growing your business, right? And so the biggest mindset gap that I find myself working through now is people selling themselves, selling their product, right? Because people have limiting beliefs around how they look, limiting beliefs around how to do it, around experiencing rejection. And so it's like I can teach you how to do it and what to do it and the strategy. But the biggest thing is like I come in and I create the real transformation starts where you run into your own limiting beliefs. And that's when you come to me and we work through that.
Right.
And once you break it, you realize like, oh, this is like easy, right? Same thing with eating. Once you break the limiting belief that eating healthy is expensive, then you realize that you can eat healthy and not have to blow a bag. Right. Once you break the limiting belief that you don't have enough time to go to the gym, now you're going to the gym 4 or 5 days a week and you found time to go to the gym. Right. And so it's really just around understanding that these limiting beliefs are what a lot of times hold us. A lot of times we think it's the thing, but it's not, it's how we're thinking. Right.
How we think about the thing.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what I realized coaching was. Like I really loved coaching because like, especially when I was a fitness coach, I love getting people in shape. I love like teaching people how to do a squat or how to do a kettlebell swing. But for me, I really enjoyed the transformation of teaching somebody how to think about something. Right. Because when I can tell you what to do, right? It's almost like that saying like, hey, you can give a man a fish or you can teach him to go fishing. And that's what I ultimately do inside of my business. I'm teaching people how to go fishing. And it's about learning how to think, right? Because the way that you think is going to determine what limiting beliefs you're bound by, right? For you to just be able to do the things that you know you need to do. Because half the times we know the things we need to do to grow the business, to get in shape, to do whatever it is that thing we're looking to work towards. And so ultimately, that's how I look at the parameters of limiting beliefs and being able to work through them.
Yeah, I like that because I think that rounds out everything that we've been talking about with the focus on you, King season. I know we've been kind of playing around that, but that's actually serious though, because what you're doing during that time too is like
you're gonna shed a lot of limiting beliefs, bro.
I
shedded a lot of
limiting beliefs, you're gonna shed a lot of that stuff, bro. Because even for me, like when I think about my season when I was reading the Bible a lot, like one of the answers that I was seeking, the reason why I didn't want that answer was because I had a limited belief around that answer.
Can I give you an example?
Go ahead, please.
When I first started reading the Bible, in my mind, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
No, yeah.
I'm like, at first I'm just like where does everybody find all this clarity and all this buzz around the Bible from? Like, that's what I felt, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, why do I gotta read the same verse 6 times for something to make sense for me sometimes, right? So I had that level of frustration. So I'm thinking, so in my mind, I default to maybe this just ain't for me. Like, maybe I'm so much of a practical person that I don't think that I should have to decipher through things to find a message in it, right? I sit down with a person and we're talking, and she says, yo, like, there's a difference between reading the Bible, right, versus receiving the word. And sometimes you got to pray and ask God to receive the Holy Spirit as you're reading the Bible. And even at first when I heard that, I'm like, so I got to pray to receive the Holy Spirit to better understand the word. Why I got to do all this? Like, that's what I'm asking myself. But again, right, this is when we talk about how God speaks to you. Yeah. But then I heard it a couple more times. I heard it in the scripture, I heard it on the podcast, I heard it on another conversation with a person, right? And now I'm like, you know what? Let me start praying a little before I read the Bible. Yeah. I start praying, and all of a sudden I'm coming over verses where I'm just like, whoa, I got to stop here, you know? And so, like, even that, like, I had a limiting belief that, like, the Bible is just too complicated for me to understand. Then I get introduced to somebody that says, well, here's what you should do if you're looking to understand it better, right? And so, like, ultimately that was transformation for me, right? Because had I not shifted that limiting belief, I would have just closed the book and be like, yeah, I mean, y'all Christians or whatever, I get y'all, but I don't understand that stuff.
That ain't for me.
It ain't for me.
Yeah.
And I would have probably, because I'm such an opinionated person, I probably would have still told on that. Like, yo, I just, you know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I'm still like I'm not a thumper by any, I'm not I call it a Bible thumper. When you just pull out verses, I'm still hitting them with the verses. I'm not there yet, you know what I'm saying? But but I'm generally just here, like, I'm taking time to, because I don't, another thing is, like, what I used to not like about religion, right? Because I'm noticing that there's a difference in religion and relationship with God, right?
Oh, for sure.
But it was like, I used to feel like it was just too socialitic, if that's a word. Like, it was all about, like, showing people that you're a Christian, showing people that you read the Bible, that you know verses. And I'm like, that just never really appealed for me, right? And so, again, like, a perspective shift, right? I'm hearing, I think it was Dr. Miles Monroe talk about the difference between a relationship with God and being religious one time. Yeah. And, like, that's what got me into the book. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, whoa, like, even, like, perspective shift. My spiritual beliefs used to be what most Christians would call a cult. It was just like, I manifest stuff and everything is about me, right? And then you realize that, again, at a certain point, you can only lean into your own understanding for so long till you realize that number one, you are not God, right? You are made in the image of God, right? But also just, like, understanding that, you know, you receive that word, and that word is truth, right? Like, we always talk about, like, you know, we talk about this whole concept of, like, your truth versus the truth. And that's the biggest thing that kind of brought me to the word of God. I'm a truth seeker, you know what I'm saying? And so I would notice that people who have maybe potentially, like, with spiritual practices, so to speak, it's very easy for somebody to just make up their own rules. I'm just like, okay, well, at what point does making up your own rules don't work no more, because this isn't the truth. This is what you're looking at as your truth. These are all perspective shifts that just hit me. Right. And I'm gonna say, God just put me in front of the right pieces of content or just conversations or things. Yeah. But think about it. Even with developing a relationship with God, you just, like, for me, it still is shedding a limiting belief, shedding a limiting belief, shedding a limiting belief. Like, that's what allows me to immerse myself in the work, in the transformation. Yeah. And a lot of times what I tell people, like, stop comparing yourself, because since we're talking about people's limiting beliefs, a lot of people struggle with comparing themselves and imposter syndrome. And it's like, first things first, here's why comparing yourself is the worst thing you can ever do. Because you void, right, what God has done for other people, as well as what he will do for you. And the reason being is because when you start to compare yourself, you don't to somebody else, oh, I feel like they this, that, and the other, or I feel like I'm not. Number one, especially when you're looking at somebody else's success, you don't know if it's real or not, number one. But also, number two, when it is real, you don't know the level of limiting beliefs that they had to transcend, right, to operate the way that they're operating. Right. You're looking at it from these vanity metrics of who they are and trying to measure yourself up. why are you trying to measure up with somebody who has a different purpose from God than you do?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So even when we get into the aspect of like, well, how do I stop comparing myself when everybody seems to be doing the best at everything, and I'm in this, that, and the other? It's like, well, sometimes you just need a little bit of a different perspective and a different way of looking at things.
Right.
Because anybody can tell you, don't compare yourself. Like, you're in your own lane. But it's like when you really take it down to the level of like, well, why are you not honoring, you know what I'm saying, where God has you in this moment?
Right.
Then you just look at it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And so that's ultimately what I do, like, as a coach. I know the term coach is just thrown around, everybody's like a coach and all that stuff, but that's what I do. I help people, you know, get rid of their limiting beliefs and do the work and become a steward of the work that they need to succeed, specifically in their business. So.
Yeah, bro. Nah, I appreciate you saying that. You said a lot about God that I feel like is gonna resonate with a lot of people, especially that point about your relationship with God versus religion. That changed a lot for me too. Because I was growing up, I was always kind of forced to go to church, and I would go to church and I'd be like, why am I here? And I don't really understand things, and like I'm not getting it. And when I got to a point when I was of age to really understand that, yes, going to church is important. That's fellowship, but I would say it's more important for you to have a relationship with God where you're reading the Bible, you're understanding the word, you're digesting it, you're coming up with your own understanding based on your situation, you're applying it to your life. And once I understood that, I was like, oh, okay, so I can have my own practice with God and my own personal relationship. And it doesn't have to be dependent on me going to church. Me going to church doesn't have to be the only conduit in which I find God in my life.
Correct.
You get what I'm saying?
And I think that was a big thing for me to learn.
No,
I had to realize that this right here is fellowship.
Exactly. Because
I still kind of don't like going to church, if I'm being honest.
And you're at the stage right now where you're breaking that. You get what I'm saying?
Right,
Like you're literally going through that process right now. Yeah. That's very important, bro. Like I think it's, and I'm not saying this to say that you shouldn't go to church, because I think it's important for folks to go to church. And I'm going to go to church and find a church home.
Right.
And that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Finding a church home, because I always used to think you go to a church and you're supposed to just, any church you go to is supposed to be it. Right. But I realized, like, now that I'm older, I always tell people this about therapists and like therapy, but it's the same with church and most things in life. You're going to stumble upon a couple that you really just don't like.
Yeah.
It's not the one for you.
Yep.
And you have to have the resilience and the determination to actually continue going with the process to find the right one, the one that speaks to you and what's going on in your life. So it's about finding a church home and not just a church. A church home is different. It gives you what you're looking for spiritually, and it also kind of appeals to the other aspects of your life that you need assistance in, because church is not only for your spiritual connection with God. At least for me personally, that's not what I'm looking for solely. It's just a connection with God. I'm also looking at the people that's in there, the pastor, the different types of ministries that they have going on in there. Like, what is that going to look like, right? So I think finding a church home, a good church home, is like the next step that I need to get into. That I will at some point in time. So I'm glad you're doing that, because I think that's important. I don't want people to think that it's supposed to just stop at reading the Bible. Like, nah, bro, you got to really get into fellowship, which is most likely going to be at church.
Yeah. And I agree. It's definitely, because I mean, even one of my first experiences going back to church, I did not like it at all. It was my friend, God bless him, and I appreciate him for kind of extending me the invite. But it was one, I forgot what type of denomination they were. But like, I came through what I thought was going to be like this is my first time going back to Bible study in years. And like they put me in a room and pulled up this whiteboard and just started asking me like, is this the way I see the Holy Trinity? Do I accept it? And I'm like, it felt so uncomfortable, bro. Word. It was like really, really weird. And it made it again, it was confirming this is why I don't do this church shit. You motherfuckers care more about how I see the Holy Trinity. They ain't ask me why I'm here, what inside of me, wanted me to turn my life to God. None of that. It's just like, dude, okay, they grew the draw. They was talking about, the way that they see it. And this felt weird for me. I'm like, yo, this feels very forced, and it feels like it's very not about my relationship with God at all. Right? And so again, I could have used that and been like, you know what? That's why I'm not doing this church thing. You know what I'm saying? Because again, I think that there could be better information out there on how people develop their relationship with God.
Yeah.
You know, I think that that's definitely a space that, for anybody that's Christian that is watching this or that's just evangelical, like helping people. Like I watched a lot of like podcast interviews from people who have similar beliefs that I had, how they turned their life to God. I was doing a lot of my own self homework because I'm like, yo, if the only way I gotta turn my life to God is just go to church every Sunday, this ain't gonna work. This ain't gonna work. Because I'm like, it's just not clicking for me. And it's like, you know, I can just not see this. It's not worth my time. And I feel like because of that, like what made things slow for me is that I never really found anybody that was like breaking down how to go about developing a relationship. Like what does it look like to find a church? Like what should you seek? What should you seek in their ministry? Right? How do you, like, you know what I'm saying? For me, it was like I go to church. It's like I either go to the worship. It's like I get a feel for it, but it's like, how do I really know like people here still share the same value systems as me, even within my relationship with God? Because like imagine going to church, you know, people getting baptized and then starting to gossip right after, right? It's just like that type of stuff is the type of stuff that I don't enjoy because it makes me feel like I'm still in a place where people don't have the right mindset as me.
Right.
Even if we're in a place that worships God, it's like, just be, you know what I mean? And so, because I know somebody that experienced that.
Right.
You know, they turned to left to God, and you know, one of the things they express is like, you know, I went to a baptism and like literally the girl who got baptized, like they just went to a circle and like during the you know, whatever ceremonies and just festivities they had after it, and they just started like they was just like gossiping. And I'm like, she was telling me like, didn't you just get baptized? Like I'm not really understanding this right here. And so I think that when depending on the way that you are, you know, trying to become a steward of the word of God, that's going to determine, you know, like I'm a thinker, like I'm a knowledge guy. I like to read a lot. I like to question things. That's why I turned my life. That's why I turned against religion, because it taught you never to question anything. Like I still read certain verses today, and I'm like, so should I gouge my eye out every time I go to the gym? Because that's what it says in scripture, and I want to know if it says it in scripture and the scripture is truth. I'm supposed to have no eyes right now going to the gym. That lust, but like, but nah, bro. I said because that's like one thing I'm still like, I'm still navigating through.
Right,
like, you know,
right,
where do I go to
right.
ask those type of questions? Like, Pastor, what we talking about right here? This sound like this is a nice little doctrine enslaved my ancestors right here. Can we talk about that? Right? Like those are real questions.
No, for sure.
Somebody like me who has found most of my identity and knowledge of self as a black man, but now I'm opening up to the knowledge of the Lord. There's a lot of conflicting things there.
Oh, for sure.
There's
bro.
a lot of conflicting
I read the
things
Bible, and there's some, and I'm glad you mentioned that because now I'm going to talk about like how I've developed my relationship. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't read any of the Old Testament right now. At some point in time I was reading random, I was reading random stuff, and I read the Old Testament stuff. But lately, I have just I'm not reading the Old Testament. And some point in time, maybe we'll get there. Yeah. But right now, I've just been reading the New Testament. And I'm saying that to say, like, you got to figure out what's working for you. I know some people that don't invest in any of the Old Testament. Like, they don't listen. Like, they don't read any of it or anything like that. I'm not saying that that's necessarily the route that I'm going down. I'm just in a period in my life right now where I'm not reading the Old Testament. Yeah. Because I think, you know what, I'm not even gonna say I think because I don't want to pervert the word of God, so I'm not even gonna say what I think about it. But what I'm essentially trying to say to you is like there's certain points in the Bible or parts of the Bible that I read where I'm like, nah, I don't really agree with this. Yeah. And I think that's okay. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, I think it's okay to read something in the Bible and be like, no, everything in the Bible is not, you're supposed to take it and be like, all right, I'm going to go and do this in my life right now. Like, or else like you said, we'd all be gouging our eyes out. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all struggle with that, right? So I don't think that's necessarily the case, but you have to make it work for you, bro. Yeah. Not like completely disregarding what's being said or trying to twist words and all that kind of stuff, but make it work for you, bro. And like I said, I'm in a season right now where I'm not reading the Old Testament. At some point in time, I'll probably get back to it. Yeah. But for right now, bro, I'm not reading the Old Testament. I found, like, in my situation, like, reading the New Testament has helped me out a lot. Like, and that's anything from Matthew onwards. Yeah. So for anybody that's, like, trying to figure out what that actually means, it's chapters or books 40 to 66. And I know because I literally had the random number generator set up on my laptop, 40 to 66, and I only pick a number between 40 to 66, and then whatever number I get, I go look at that. I go look at that book, and then from there, I pick a chapter from there, from that book, and then I read that chapter and come up with my own understanding and trying to like really assess it. So that's my practice. So when we talk about like folks finding their own practice and how to develop their own relationship, that's what's worked for me. May not work for everybody, but you know, definitely can be something that people try for sure. Yeah, what have you been doing though?
Bro, honestly, so because that's a great point. Because another thing that I felt like, you know, creates a lot of conflict with me was like when I would try to find discipleship in different thought leaders within that realm, right? And this is why again I agree with like you read and you gotta let it resonate with you. Cause on Christian YouTube is crazy.
Oh,
I feel like it's just a bunch of pastors just coming at each other for the way that they look at scripture or denomination. You know, and like, cause again, I'm a questioner. So like, my thing is like, if I'm gonna have complete faith in a word, I'm gonna really want to understand this word.
What I need, I
want to really want to understand like this whole this in its full. Otherwise, it's just a doctrine to me. So that's just my thought process behind it. Right?
No, I understand.
And I think that at a certain point, there is a decision where you decide, do I look at the Bible and the Word of God as a doctrine, or do I look at it as truth, right? And if I'm just being purely honest, I'm still in that mid-ground there. Like I'm still studying because I still have a lot of questions where I'm like, I feel like, is it prideful for me to feel like I want to question this, not question it and pervert the Word of God, but like, what does this mean? Can you help me understand this? Because it doesn't sound like, help me understand that, right? And I think part of it is two things. Number one, going back to my initial statement, which is like, I feel like there should be a way where people, you know, are welcome to understand the Word of God in a way, like are welcome to understand how to develop their discipleship, right? And because I do have a lot of those challenges, and sometimes I kind of really do just take it back to like, I'm gonna say like, you know, when it comes to books, right? I'm an adamant reader. I always recommend people books based on where they're at in their journey, right? Like for example, like I know somebody that was going through some roughness in a long-term relationship, and I introduced them the way to Superior Man, and I just felt like it could be relevant based on the context that it was telling me in conversation, and they came back to me and was like, everything in this book, it felt like it was like 20 years worth of knowledge for me that I should have learned 20 years ago, right? For me, when I'm looking at reading scripture, like I try to go through it chronologically, because I be in the Old Testament, I be in Leviticus, I be in Leviticus, I be in Leviticus getting down and dirty with my highlighter. I be in it because it's like, look, if this is what the word is, I want to understand.
For sure.
You know, and I don't be agreeing with it. I'm like, whoa, it's giving real colonizer with a Bible in his hand that created all the trauma I'm trying to deliver myself from right now. Right. However, but that's also just like, again, I'm for me, the biggest thing is like opening up your heart up to receive. And to understand like not everything you're gonna like register with, some things you're gonna receive. And it's gonna be timely for you. Like so there's some things that I received from that book. I'm like, man, this is like wow, this is a lifesaver. Like this has literally developed me and helped me become more clear about what truth actually is and how to navigate this different part of my life, right? And so I you know, I'm still kind of in that place. I think that once I really find a church that I could really find fellowship in, then I think that might change for me. But as of right now, I'm just like, I read through it. Some things I'll be opening up, but I just highlight like, I wonder what this is. And you know, I'm told like, you know, you got to pray on it. Like what, like, you got to pray on it, right?
For sure.
And so that's what I do. And there are times where like, I'm trying to find an answer to something. I just open up a scripture and the answer's right there.
Nah, I'm telling you, it definitely does happen, bro. One of the reasons why I stopped reading the Old Testament, here, I won't even say that. Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll encourage you to do. I'll encourage you to like why there's an Old Testament and why there's a New Testament.
Okay.
When you understand the why, that may help to influence like what you do. Not saying that you have to stop reading Old Testament or whatever, but it may also help you to help influence your thought process and stuff. Because once I researched the why, I was like, okay. And the reason why I'm not saying the why is because I don't want to pervert it. I'm not completely sure.
Yeah.
And so I want people to do their own research, come to their own understanding. I don't want to give any information out. I want people to actually go and read it and figure it out for themselves versus me telling people what I believe it to be. So that's one aspect of that. And then the second aspect is there's a lot of stuff that I've read in the Bible that talk about like slavery and how to be a good, like if you have a slave master and like you're supposed to be obedient and all these like, and I was like, yo, bro, hell no. Like that's the stuff I'm talking about. Like
I asked myself.
No.
I was literally, sorry, I think you're again, I'm not Thumper yet, but I'm have to go back to my notes. But I was reading across that I think it was last week. And the question that immediately came to mind for me was like, all right, so if we had accepted Christianity, would we still be slaves right now?
Probably.
Like if we had, like, because, you know, when we talk about.
If we accepted those verses, that's what I'm saying. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because you know, there's a lot of, you know, when we start to talk about like the Haitian Revolution and essentially like what created the domino effect of the spirit of freedom within ourselves, that didn't come from Christianity. Right? At least as I know from history, because when we talk about the Haitian Revolution, you know, and there are other people that will say like for example, I remember watching a black pastor say the reason why Haiti is so in shit like such a like a cursed place is because they practice a lot of witchcraft. And I'm like, oh, not because they signed the treaty and put themselves in debt with the French when they defeated them to free themselves. So like I just was like I don't know how to take that, you know what I'm saying? Because I also understand that when we look at the Haitian Revolution and its influence on slavery, influence on the spirit of slaves and how they saw freedom for themselves, which wasn't rooted in Christianity, right? And I'm definitely fair for somebody to come debunk me and let me. I'm just giving what I know, what I've read, and the knowledge that I've come across. It makes me think like, okay, well, if we would have followed this book to the T, would we still just be slaves under white people today?
Right. And those are valid questions. I think anybody and this is the thing I wanted to say, the other thing I wanted to say too is like, I don't think there's wrong with having questions about what you read. I think
I'm gonna just have them.
No. And that's the thing though, bro. There's nothing wrong with that. Like if you're not having questions about what you're reading, are you truly seeking to understand?
Right.
Nobody truly reads the Bible and just understands every word. There's questions that lead to answers and solutions. So I think it's important for you to have those questions, keep those questions, and find a place, whether it be a church home or some type of fellowship, where you can get those questions off and really find answers that actually make sense. Because if you're not asking the questions, bro, you're not truly getting to an understanding of what's being said, bro. And if you're not getting to an understanding of what's being said, then are you truly comprehending what you're supposed to be comprehending, bro? You get what I'm saying?
And the reason why I said it like that, like, yo, I'm gonna ask some questions, is because I think that one of the things that turned me off from having a relationship with God was that some people are more involved in the identity of being a Christian than the identity of having a relationship with God, right? And so when we talk about like accepting Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, when we talk about the Word of God, right? Some people don't question at all because it's looked down upon. I'm not. If I'm just being honest, I don't really care if somebody's gonna consider me a Christian or not. I'm developing a relationship with God for my relationship with God, and so those social things do not appeal to me. So my thing is like, I want to come with all my questions, right? Because if I don't, then I can't accept the Word of God and be having these doubts in my mind, like, yo, but I just really still feel like that's not, because again, it's like the truth is the truth. Like that's the thing. When you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, what's in Scripture is what's in Scripture. At least it's from what I understand, right? And so my thing is like, okay, but if I'm somebody who is opening my heart and my spirit to that acceptance, right? I'm speaking generally for people that are maybe practical thinkers that are trying to work their way into the Word of God. Why does it look so down upon for me to ask those questions?
Let me stop you right there, bro. Because when I read the Bible, right, let me tell you why whenever I hear that, why I would never believe that there's something wrong to have questions. I'll never agree that you should not have questions. I think wholeheartedly you should have questions. Because the first thing that came to my mind, I remember thinking this the other day, and I was like, yo, that's kind of wild. If you read the Bible, if you read the New Testament, that's the part where Jesus is alive and like going through the story and all that kind of stuff. I've only seen one part of the Bible that I'll talk about where Jesus was asked a question and he didn't respond. So let me just say that, right? Whenever people questioned Jesus, right, our Lord and Savior, we're talking about Christianity, he would respond, whether it be a response with reasoning, whether it be a response with scripture, he would respond. So if Jesus was responding to people's questions, why can't people respond to your questions if we are supposed to be like Christ, right? Or Christ-like.
Christ-like.
The only time I didn't see that so far from what I've read, right? I haven't read the whole Bible, so people can correct me. I'm open to correction here. Only time I didn't see Jesus respond to a question was when he was talking to the Pharisees, and I think they asked him a question about where he gets his authority from. And then he combated that question with another question that he knew was going to have them in a conundrum if they answered it. And so they decided not to answer it. And so he decided not to answer their question. That's the only time that I've seen him not answer the question. Outside of that, when people question him about stuff, what he was doing, why he did it, and where his faith comes from, and where all that kind of stuff, he's answering the questions with scriptures. He answers people's questions from what I've seen in the Bible. So why is it a problem for us to have questions as a Christian? I think there's nothing wrong with us having questions, bro. So I think anybody that's gonna question you for questioning the word, is not moving Christ-like, in my opinion, because from what I've seen in the Bible, for what Jesus Christ does, he's answering the questions for the most part. So that's one thing that I want to say, because that came to my mind when you were mentioning that. I was like, yo, I did think about this the other day, like, yo, because I have the same thought process sometimes. I'm like, yo, am I asking too many questions? Am I supposed to just believe everything I'm reading here? And I'm like, nah, because I'm reading scripture. I'm like, yo, every time people ask Jesus a question, he answers the question. What's wrong with me asking questions? But people make it seem like you're supposed to always just go with it, figure it out. I was like, nah, bro, I'm a human being. Like, it's okay for me to have questions, bro. And most of the times when I have questions about stuff, God leads me to some sort of answer that helps me to break a limiting belief, or helps me to grow, or helps me to transform. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's
really where it roots back to.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that God reveals himself in so many different ways. Right?
For sure.
Because like I was especially in my very, very beginning journey in reading the Bible, the big question that really stood in the back of my mind is like, yo, is Christianity the white man's religion? Is Christianity the religion that white men use to colonize us, to use to make us think that we were not built in the image of God, that we were animal-like, which justifies their need to see us to be subservient to them in their colonizing efforts? And if that's so, how does it empower me as a black man to be a part of the same religion of my oppressor? Right? Like, this is a big question for me, right? And it's funny because like I kind of prayed on it, like, I'm just trying to understand this. Yeah. And I came across I think she's a Nigerian woman. She's like I think she's a minister or a pastor. She has a YouTube channel. She had it was like, bro, it just popped up on my feed. And it said, is Christianity the white man's religion? And it was like an 1.5-hour video. And she was breaking down so many different things, bro.
What was her name? You remember her name?
I think her name is Stephanie.
You gotta send that to me, bro. I need that.
I will.
I need that.
But she broke down the difference between the sins of man, like sins of man being, you know, and the use of the Bible for justification of slavery, how slavery was perverted. She talked about like how a lot of us will talk about ancestral worship, right? But we won't realize that some of our ancestors were worshiping the wrong deities, putting curses on our bloodline, or like sacrificing babies and shit. Like, we talk about ancestral worship a lot, like there's not a dark side of it. You know what I'm saying? And she was just breaking down a lot of different things that, again, it helped me just open up my perspective, right? To say, okay. Then I came across another video like that, and it was like I think it was like 3 or 4 college professors, and so some very strong like research-driven Christian intellectuals and they were all black. They were talking about that, like Christianity and a race dynamic in Christianity. Because again, I developed most of my sense of personal development starting in who I was as a black man. Right. Because that's what allowed me to shatter all my limiting beliefs when I was younger. My limiting belief that if I want to get money, all I gotta do is do this. My limiting belief that success is limited to me because you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And so what would help me transcend certain limiting beliefs may now be limiting beliefs to help me transcend to this new level, right?
Yeah.
We talk about making these paradigm shifts. We talk about having these quantum leaps, you know what I'm saying, in the way that we think about things. But that also, because I have certain pieces of knowledge that help me develop myself, when I look at something like the Word, I look at the relationship between Christianity, race dynamics, where we are as Black people, why is in every single hood there's more churches than there are institutions that actually bring value, and all these different complex questions that there really is never one simple, easy answer for.
Yeah.
Even when I simply just take the time to ask God, he gives me at least at minimum the information to help me develop a better perspective.
Right.
And that I can agree to is definitely a way to kind of work through, at least that I'm using for myself right now, to work through these different aspects of the Bible where I read and I'm like, yo, I can't help but just think that like this makes me feel disconnected.
Right.
And is it just my seek of knowledge and truth that makes me want to really understand this verse, right? It, you know, what is it? And I think that, you know, I'm not going to always get the answers, but I think that sometimes it's just the breadcrems.
Yeah.
You know, because had I not seen that video, I would have probably closed the Bible up.
Oh, for sure.
I remember I was going through, I want to say I think it was a verse in Leviticus that it talks about like, and I'm not a thumper by any means, right? However, it talked about when seizing the land of people, how you leave nothing behind, right? And it makes you think about apartheid in South Africa, or like even when you go when I go to Guyana and I look at why it still looks like it's in the 1890s. Part of colonialism was when your regime was leaving a country, you took everything.
You stripped them.
You stripped them of their libraries, you burnt their books, you took everything from toilet paper, anything that they can use to continue to build and engineer themselves up as a civilization, as a society. And I'm looking at this Bible verse and I'm saying, well, it says to do that right here in the verse. Am I thinking too far into this? I need answers, right? And so like, again, I'm working through these different types of things, and like, I just feel like God is working through me right now, because I don't feel like a lot of people are comfortable enough
to even have this conversation.
To like talk about their conflicts with accepting the word of God. Right here. But I'm gonna do it because, again, any of y'all Christians that want to hit me in DM, look, I just care to have a relationship with God. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just gonna be here and I'm gonna, you know, ask questions that may be answered, you know. But I think that like even that itself, it's like, damn, like is my ignorance, because I also say ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is really bliss. But for the longest time, I developed how my progression as a Black man, in the word of Malcolm X, Stokely Carmichael, Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Amos Wilson, developmental psychology, the Black child. I developed a lot of the way that I think as a Black man from doctrines and knowledge-based context, some theory, but knowledge-based context, into being able to find how you need to operate as a Black man, and not be institutionalized and victimized by the construct of white supremacy. So like turning my hand over now to the Lord and opening up the book that was slapped down on my ancestors' heads and turned them into slaves and developed trauma. It's like it's definitely not smooth sailing, but I'm just here and I'm in it, and I'm opening up my heart to receive the word of God and receive the understanding of these things, because I know that if and when I do, it's going to allow me to shed that understanding of people who need it. Because I can tell you right now, anybody who's like a pro, like I would consider myself a pro-Black intellectual, right? They're typically going to be against
the Bible.
Christianity.
For sure.
Like typically, because it's just like Christianity. There's not a lot of pockets where Christianity has demonstrated active strategy in Black progression. Right. At least from the knowledge that you receive. And then when you try to go into the church, everything is just like subjective because God said so. And I'm like, well, it's also because the white, like, so it's just like you start to develop all these conflicting things. And I think that now that when we talk about relationships, kind of what I spoke to you before the podcast about, because I'm in that, I would say that phase of learning. the other side of relationships that can be challenges is what happens when you have somebody is already convicted in a word, already convicted in a certain religion.
Yeah.
Right. And you aren't.
Yeah.
Like you're still figuring that out. Like, do you rush that? Do you, because for some people, spirituality and their beliefs don't really matter that much in a relationship. I'm going to say for me and my purview, it does.
Yeah.
Because, Alex Hormozy, this business guy, talks about this little graph, right? Where it talks about like you have opportunities. He talks about it in business, but it's really in life, especially in marriage. Where you have like this informed optimism. Like you're seeing all the dopeness about this opportunity, this new business, this new thing, right? But then you go through this loop and then you go into this place called uninformed pessimism, where you're like, oh shoot, I didn't realize that this was gonna come with it. And then you go into what we call the valley of despair, which is like where you're at the bottom of getting all the things that you did not consider. And most people quit on things in life, especially in business, when they're in the valley of despair. Right? I use this model for coaching because that's where most people quit in their business, when you're just dealing with everything negative about it, right? But it could make me think about a lot of people don't, like, when we talk about marriage. Yeah. Right? We have informed optimism. Marriage, we start a family, is what I'm supposed to be doing as a fam. Then you got uninformed pessimism, which is like, I ain't know that like living with a person was gonna really be like this. Yeah. I ain't know that after my wife had her first child, she was gonna be going through postpartum depression and be a completely different person because her hormones are different. The valley of despair. I'm damn near borderline lusting and I'm borderline cheating in my mind because I like all these different things. And again, actually, I'm not gonna go there now. I'm staying on the same point. My thing is that the reason why I feel like spiritual beliefs are so important and to be aligned in a relationship is because when you go through that valley of despair with a person, if they only know how to worship themselves and not the God, I can almost guarantee you shit will not work out.
For sure.
Like my desire to want to marry successfully, right, and want children, is that like in the future is directly tied with my decisions to develop in my spirituality right now. Because I know that I need to be spiritually aligned as a man to go through the parts of relationships that a lot of people don't talk about. Right. The relationship with God is gonna be the only thing that guides your decisions as a man.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you, yo, God is using you right now, bro. I'm gonna keep it stacked with you. I know you feel like, you may feel like right now you're not sure about like what you're saying and like questioning and all this stuff, but I'm gonna tell you something right now, a couple of things. First of all, this conversation right now is gonna win over so many more black men than watching a church video. That's one. And if you think about how this conversation started, I was trying to figure out, why did God make us start this conversation the way he made it start?
I did not think we was going to come to this side in this conversation.
Right. I didn't think we were going to do that either. I had no intention of talking about God. God is not listed anywhere on the script for today.
Facts.
I'm going to keep it a stack with you, bro. It's not. He's not on the script today.
It's not crazy.
I love you, Big G, but he wasn't on the script today. We talk about God a lot, but he wasn't on the script today. So I realized God is definitely moving in this conversation. This was a conversation that needed to happen. And he started it with relationships because he knows that black men will stay if we talking about relationships. So that's why when we first started the conversation, we just went straight into relationships. And I thought we were just gonna have a conversation about relationships the entire time. Cause we just flow. I have a script, but we don't end up going off the script. We just have a conversation. The reason why he started like that is because he knew if we start with relationships for a while, people will get hooked and then continue the conversation. So at this point, whoever's going to be listening to it has needed whatever we've been talking about. Yeah. It was needed to have that conversation. So that's why I'm saying this is going to win over more folks than somebody watching a church video, because they're going to see themselves in you and me and say, you know what, I'm going to actually go read the Bible. I'm going to look up the difference between the Old Testament and the New Testament. One of the things you said about being spiritually aligned, bro, I'm going to keep it a stack with you. Ooh, man, I'm gonna get real vulnerable because we late in the podcast episode.
We just some black men expressing ourselves.
Facts. A lot of folks probably ain't gonna get to this point. Maybe we'll make it a clip, maybe we won't. You hit me, you asked me, you said, yo, you and Salima still together? I was like, yeah. You're like, oh, cause I didn't see you posted in a while. I was just wondering, so I didn't know what was going on. Reason why you didn't see that is because for a period of time last year, shit was rocky. We was in the value of despair where I'm like, oh, I don't know, dog. I said, I don't know, dog. I don't know about this one, Big G.
Yeah.
I think I might have to step out of this one now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think, I don't know.
I don't know about this one, Big G.
Nah, for real. I said, I don't know about this one, Big G. I think I might have to get out of this, bro. I'm going to keep it a stack with you.
Yeah.
Shit wasn't really, we was in a period where we was just arguing all the time. We wasn't seeing eye to eye. Shit wasn't working out. Nobody cheated anything like that. It wasn't crazy, anything like that. But we just wasn't, we were going in two different routes. It felt like that's where we were going. That's when I started reading the Bible, bro. Right? And I'm reading the Bible and I'm like, God, what do I do? Everything is telling me to step out of this. Everything is telling me to step out of this. Everything is telling me to step out of this. What do? I keep getting the verses on patience. And I'm like, God, I'm good, bro. I don't want to be patient. I've been patient.
Right.
I'm tired of being patient. I get another verse on patience. Then I get a verse on when two or more are there, when two or more are present, I am there. And then I'm realizing I haven't invited God into my relationship. Because I haven't invited God into my relationship, I'm doing things based on my own understanding, which is why I'm running into all this friction. And then when you know how I knew it was confirmed? Because when me and Naima actually were supposed to spend time together, right? I got the same verse. When two or more are here, when two or more are here, when two or more gather, I'm there. I told Naima, I said, yo, listen, we got to pray. I said, we got to pray. We haven't prayed enough about over our relationship. We haven't prayed enough about what we're going through, about our situation, about where we should be going. We don't pray. We always talk about God. We're spiritual, but we don't pray together. We don't read the Bible together. We don't do any of this together. And I apologized to her. I said, that's on me. Because as a man, I'm supposed to lead and guide us in that direction. And I haven't done it because I wasn't spiritually aligned myself. You get what I'm saying? And so saying all that to say, bro, that point that you made about being spiritually aligned is very important for when you guys are going through the rocky points of your life and in your relationship. Because if you're not spiritually aligned, you're going to step out. Yep. If you focus on your own understanding, you're going to dip out, bro, because it's too easy to do it.
Yeah, bro. Because you're only thinking about you.
Yeah.
Like that's just your reality. Like it's really it's like if you only think about you, most relationships won't work. Why do you think all them polyamorous? I ain't never met a person who's polyamorous. I only met a couple people that's really like into that lifestyle. Nothing against people who is, to each his own. However, like those relationships never work out. They never, like I've never seen anybody like have those type of dynamics where it's like you have multiple, because it's a self-driven dynamic. And for me, because what I'm learning is that there's a difference. I've developed a lot of mental discernment, right? But spiritual discernment is a path that I'm on, right? It's almost like I talk about alignment a lot. I used to talk about that a lot when I used to help men get in shape, right? Trying to find alignment between your mind, your body, your business, right? I always say balance doesn't exist. You got to find alignment. You got to understand that there's certain like right now, like bro, at my peak, probably like a year and a half ago, I would have popped the shirts off this actual flannel right here, because I was like 160. I'm lifting crazy, because right now my relationship is my while I have a foundation built on my health, my main goal is in my spiritual development right now. Like I understand that it's not the season to have the craziest routine. My routine needs to be developed. It needs to be immersed in the Word of God, right? And so I think that, you know, again, going back to like understand having an alignment in things, like sometimes we have to really ask our like selves, how much work are we actually doing? Because the biggest thing for me is like I almost closed the book up a couple times, bro. And I said, man, I done invested that tens of thousands of dollars into my education, in my business intellect. I done put thousands of reps into my body, my physical body. You're not gonna put that amount of reps into your spiritual body, bro, into your spiritual relationship. I had to check myself. Because ultimately, I think that as I got older, I started to realize that a life where it's just only about you isn't really a fulfilling life at all. You know, I'm reading this book about called A Purpose-Driven Life. And it's the first self-development book that's not about self. It's about developing, like finding your purpose in God. And again, it's just a whole perspective shift for me, bro. Right? I look at purpose and passions and what God has put me here to do, just so like starting to look at it so differently now.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I think that with that, there's gonna be those opportunities where you get to really immerse yourself in the word.
Yeah.
You know? And I think for me, I seen people in that valley of despair. And I seen like no matter how elevated, no matter how much bread you got, especially when it comes to relationships, especially marriage, because I think the scariest thing as a black man is knowing like the type of odds that you're fighting against to be successful, and then to have a lot of that success ruined by a divorce. So that we could talk about that, right? Which is one reason why honestly, personally, I would delay a lot of commitment. Like all this whole, I was talking to this girl the other day, she's like, my friend got married in 6 months. I said, I'm gonna have to see you in and out, light and dark, sweetheart, because I'm working too hard. I'm working too hard for me to get to my peak, and then you just gonna take all my, you know what I'm saying? Because that's the way the system is designed. But okay, but the reason why I say that though is because when I'm a firm believer of learning from other people's mistakes. And when I would look at certain people in dynamics where, again, didn't matter how much bread they had, bro, how much of a sharp dude that they was, when they was in that valley of despair, if they wasn't rooting in God, they did not have the answers. And as somebody who, I always grew up as a person who kind of had the answers, like, oh, that's cousin Elijah. I'm just like, damn, what is that gonna feel like? Because I know I can't get around that. It's like you like, that's like, I know cycles too much, especially being an entrepreneur, to understand like, if this is gonna happen in business, like I can try a business over 100 times over. I can't try marriage over 100 times over.
Right.
And that's what really got me to thinking, well, there's gotta be some truth that allows me to immerse myself in something bigger than myself. Because if it's only me that I care about and only my desires, I will always see selflessness as sacrifice or settling. I will always see making decisions as obligations. And I will carry myself with a mindset that is not aligned with the man I want to become. And so when you said like, yo, I was in that valley of despair and I tried to open up the word, I'm like, bro, I'm glad you did.
I'm telling you, I had to, because I came to the same understanding as you. I was like, yo, I don't have the answers. I really don't have the answers, and I don't want to make a decision what an uninformed opinion or perspective.
Because to a certain level, there will always be, again, when you're only leaning on your own understanding, there will always be some sort of gap in information.
Yeah,
always.
For sure.
That's why you see like, you know, I had a conversation with my cousin, and we used to be really, really big into like the Black conscious space. And I was like, we just had this conversation. He's like, yeah, bro, you know, I don't really tap into a lot of these dudes no more. Obviously, because I don't believe that I'm a God no more. I don't believe that, you know, these doctrines. And he was like, some of these guys, they go down these rabbit holes of leaning. What happens when you lean onto your own understanding for too long is you end up going crazy. And it made me think about all of like these different figures in like the Black conscious community that be going nuts. And everybody be like, it's the CIA. I'm like, all right, cool, potentially, right? But could it be like after a certain while leaning on your own understanding and trying to continuously find that gap in knowledge or information, you just continue to go down a rabbit hole where you just lose yourself? Because I'll be questioning, I'm a thinker, so I'll be questioning all this type of shit.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's critical thinking, yeah.
But going back to what you said, it's like, you know, when you have the word and the word is the truth, like you ultimately have the truth. Because there's always gonna be a blind side. Yeah. Right. But in the same way, it's almost like there's never a blind side if you got a relationship with God.
I like the way you said that.
You know what I'm saying?
I like the way you said that, because when I talk about uninformed opinion, how I get informed is through my relationship.
You feel me? And that's what I'm seeking.
Side. Yeah.
Like
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking this like I'm speaking this as a seeker right now. Like I'm just seeking, and these are just the downloads that I'm getting as I seek. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But like I resonate with that, bro.
Nah, for sure. Man. Can you give, before we end, bro, what would you say to someone that's trying to navigate their relationship? It's a young man that's trying to navigate his relationship with God right now.
Yeah. I would suggest, number one, to look to develop a relationship with God for yourself and not anybody else. Right. I know that's what's personally worked for me. I would definitely consider just really opening up your heart to it. And that may be easier for some, harder for others. I think we all have different experiences, different information that we have that can create conflict. And look, I've expressed like where I'm at, and I'm still working through a lot of that conflict. However, as you can see, God, just through this episode, God is always working. And so just open your heart up to the word, find people that you can fellowship with, and learn how to pray. I think one of the things that has really been has really been instrumental for me is learning how to pray better. You know, I feel like the better I get at just learning how to pray and learn how to talk to God, the more things begin to open up for me. You know what I mean? And just understanding that, like it can never hurt for you to develop as a man in your spirit, because look, if y'all want to spend time talking about, putting your time and energy in a podcast, talk about the same old topics about how women don't submit and that's, that, and the other, like at the end of the day, how can a woman submit to you? You're not submitted to a God. You know what I'm saying? And that's just what it is. Like, I think that there will be a point, especially when you start to really figure out how you want to assess your manhood, or how do you assess that manhood, and where you fall short, and a lot of shit that most men just don't talk about. Men hold in a lot, bro. Men hold in a lot, bro. And I think one of the biggest things men hold in is like where they feel like they're not enough. And I think that as you begin to understand and assess, so sort of like how you want to be grounded through not just the good in your life, but also the challenges, I think you got to learn to receive the word, to receive, information and wisdom from something that's bigger than you. So that's all I got. You know what I'm saying? Again, that's not advice. I'm not a professional in this. This is just where I'm at and where I'm seeking, and sort of what's currently working for me. You know what I mean?
No,
but
absolutely.
Open your heart up to God. He got you.
No, absolutely. And then how did you, because you talk about learning how to pray. How did you learn how to pray? What do you feel like has been helpful for you? Because I know there's some folks that have no idea how to start.
Yeah. So I would say one thing is like the right fellowship. Like I have a friend who's a minister, or he's not a minister. He's a pastor, but he does a lot in his ministry, and he has sent me over prayers. I study. Sometimes I catch the prayers from Psalms. Sometimes I'm just like, I'll just hear prayer in different ways, and just sort of like to not adopt them as my own, but start to, let's say, hey, I really want to pray on that. Like, how do I pray on this? So again, I think it's really one thing that's been a challenge for me that I'm leaning into more is like you really have to ask to receive in this journey. At least in a journey with Jesus Christ, like you have to ask to receive. And sometimes you do receive, but for a lot of times for the things that you're challenged on, you have to ask to receive. And so for me, that's how I would say I would learn how to pray. I'm learning how to pray.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to end this with a prayer for sure. So I'm going to pray, and then we can actually tell people where they can find you. Then I'm going to pray and we'll end it.
Yeah, no doubt. You guys can find me on Instagram at coach_Tyson. Same thing on YouTube. Most of my content is business oriented, right? So if you're an online business owner, service-based business owner, coach, consultant, like that's where I operate in most of my work. But just a person, I just want to connect with somebody who, again, is seeking somebody who is growth-minded. Let's definitely connect there. And that's really it, bro. Just those two platforms. Okay. Probably soon to be YouTube, but that's a business conversation for another time.
Okay. Can we pray real quick? Are you good?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Father God, I want to say thank you for today. Say blessed be your holy name. Thank you for allowing us to have this conversation. I wasn't sure where we were starting the conversation or how we were going to facilitate the conversation, but one thing I'm sure of is your presence in today's conversation for sure with Tice. I appreciate you allowing my brother to come in here and express and be vulnerable and share some of his experience, because I know for a fact it's going to resonate with a lot of different Black men. And I know the ultimate goal is to bring people into the kingdom, Father. And I feel like we've been able to help with that today, Father, by asking the questions. I pray that you allow him to continue to go down his own journey, that you give him the discernment, the clarity that he seeks, the wisdom, the knowledge, the understanding, and not just Tice, but anybody else that's watching or listening to this episode, Lord, I pray that you allow them to find their own understanding and their own relationship and their own path to you, Father, whether it be through fellowship, through the word, through prayer, hopefully through all three, Father. But I pray that they're able to find their own relationship with you, Lord. I want to pray that you soak and cover them with the blood of Jesus, that you keep them protected, that you continue to guide them, and that you walk with them, Lord. I just want to say thank you again for your grace, your understanding, your mercy. Pray that you forgive us for the sins we've committed against you. In Jesus' mighty name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Brother, I appreciate you.
God.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you are planning an event or you are part of your organization's Black employee group and you are interested in having dope Black mental health professionals or myself come in and do a speaking engagement or a workshop or a keynote address or a panel, please click the link in our bio on Instagram or TikTok, scroll down and click book us for speaking and brand deals and fill out the form available on our website. Once you fill out the form, one of our team members will get back to you about how we can collaborate and create something dope for your organization. This is an unparalleled opportunity. We are currently the largest Black men's mental health platform, and we have a few slots available for our calendar year, and we would love to partner with you to create something dope for your organization if it makes sense for both parties, right? So go to the link in our bio, scroll down, click book us for speaking and brand deals, and fill out that form. If you're not on Instagram, the link should be linked in our description of this episode. And it is also on our website. If you go to expressyourselfblackman.com/speaking-brand-deals. That's expressyourselfblackman.com/speaking-brand-deals. If you are looking for a therapist, a Black therapist, and you've had a hard time finding one, you jump from therapist to therapist, or you just don't know how to find a therapist, we are teaching a free webinar. It's completely free, taking you from not knowing how to find a therapist, not knowing where to search for therapists, struggling with finding good therapists for you, not knowing what to look for in therapists, teaching you all of those different things, and also giving you the opportunity at the end of the webinar to be connected with one of our safe haven healers who are Black mental health professionals so that you do not have to go through the struggles of finding a Black therapist alone anymore, right? So if you're interested in that, you want to get connected with a Black mental health professional at the end of the webinar, or you just want to learn how to find a Black therapist by yourself, you can sign up for the free webinar. It's linked in our bio on Instagram and TikTok. You just click that free webinar link. Once you click the link in our bio and fill out the form. You can also find it on our website at expressyourselfblackman.com/links and fill out the form there for our next webinar session. If you're not interested in any of that, right, but you know someone that may be interested in it, all we ask is that you please share it. If you want some of the merch that we show on the platform all the time, that we're wearing on the platform all the time, you can shop it at shop.expressyourselfblackman.com. And once again, we just want to say thank you so much for watching this episode. Thank you so much for supporting us. Please, if you are on YouTube, leave a like, subscribe, comment. If you're listening to this on an audio platform, please leave a review. It helps us out greatly. Thank you so much for your support. We're wishing you nothing but the best and sending you and your family and your loved ones love and light. Peace.
Sometimes I know you feel like you ain't got nobody to speak to. A shoulder to lean on somebody you could preach to. No, you need to hear it, my brother, I love you. We got way too much to live for.